Anyway, Nikki, it's Michelle, it's on, but you will share, right? And then just let me know if you can't do it.
I'm starting, Noel.
Okay.
This is Contacts and Continuities, 500 Years of Asian-Iberian Encounters, an international conference online hosted by Ateneo de Manila University in collaboration with SHAM, Centro de Humanidades, Universidad Nova de Lisboa, and the National Quincentennial Committee of the Republic of the Philippines. It's now 4 p.m. local time in Manila, 9 a.m. in Portugal. Good afternoon from Manila. Good morning from Lisbon. We are live streaming on the conference YouTube channel and the National Quincentennial Committee Facebook page. To all of you who are in this Zoom room and on social media, I greet you all. Today's special panel is organized by the Philippine Embassy in Portugal, entitled From Spices to Startups, Philippine-Portuguese Trade Relations. To formally open the event, I call on Ambassador Celia Ana M. Feria for her opening remarks. Ambassador Feria.
Good morning from Lisbon. On behalf of the Philippine Embassy, I wish to thank the School of Humanities of the Ateneo de Manila and the Centro de Humanidades of the Universidad Nova de Lisboa and the National Quincentennial Committee for organizing this last installment of international conferences that started in Lisbon in 2019 in commemoration of the 500 years of the victory at the Battle of Mactan and the role that the Philippines played in the 500 years of the circumnavigation of the world by the Magellan-Elcano expedition. I also like to thank Ms. Centrina Tamala for her patience in painstakingly designing our poster. Centrina is a talented 17-year-old traditional and digital artist who lives in Lapu-Lapu City in Cebu. She was able to grasp the idea behind the poster, and this despite her age and the distance and the time difference between Cebu and Lisbon. And this really gives me hope for the future of the country. For the past few weeks and until 23 July, we will be listening to presentations that link our histories together, the contacts, connections, and continuing conversations since the 16th century between the kingdoms of Portugal and Spain and the Philippines. Since I arrived in Lisbon in 2017, the embassy had begun work on activities that would highlight the narratives of the Philippines in the Portuguese part of this epic circumnavigation voyage. In the process, the embassy reestablished relations with Ateneo and rediscovered our now what we call BFFs or best friends forever from CHAM of the Centro de Humanidades of the Universidad Nova de Lisboa. You know, the embassy was present when relations between Ateneo and CHAM were sealed in the signing of the MOU in October of 2018. Since then, our engagements with CHAM and Ateneo have taken us on a whirlwind tour of more than 500 years of Philippine-Portugal historical relations. So in the context of the four-week international conference entitled Contacts and Continuities, 500 Years of Asian-Iberian Encounters, today's special panel we titled From Spices to Startups. It's the embassy's contribution to highlight our common histories and common narratives with Portugal. But today we give it a twist. We will be talking about contacts and connections in the 21st century relations between Portugal and the Philippines. We will try to encapsulate in 2.5 hours elements of our economic relations over the past years, starting with stories about how Portuguese canned sardines, in particular the brand Mabuti, made its way to Philippine households, including mine in the 60s and the 70s. I grew up buying this iconic brand in the supermarkets in Manila when, as a young girl, my mother got me a supermarket charge card and passed me to do the groceries. Little did I know that this iconic orange can from Portugal would play a role in my life as the Philippine ambassador to Portugal. So I thank you, Nuno Rocha of Pinay y Compañía, for joining us today and telling us more about Mabuti sardines. We will also hear from my colleague at the Office of International Economic Relations, Assistant Secretary Gina Hamorelin, about how economic diplomacy can be both delicious and satisfying. Finding markets for innovative Philippine products has never tasted this good. We want to show the world that the Philippines is indeed a leader in creative and innovative ideas. From Portuguese sardines to Portuguese startups. Web Summit, which is the biggest tech conference in Europe, is hosted in Lisbon. Once a year, the biggest names in the tech and digital world gather in Lisbon. We will hear from Froilan Pamintuan, our trade attaché based in Paris, and from Ricardo Lima of Web Summit about the Philippine startups in Web Summit and how their participation has raised the profile of Philippine startups in Europe. The embassy would like to see more young Philippine startups reach out to our startup panel discussants so they can realize their potential, and who knows, maybe the next unicorn is among those watching us now. We will also hear firsthand from a Philippine investor in Portugal, Mr. Lawrence de los Santos. As ambassador, I have my bragging rights when I say that a Filipino-owned company, NST Apparel, has generated 300, perhaps even more jobs in Portugal. But Philippine bragging rights don't end there because it is a company that produces top-of-the-line, high-end garments for the big fashion names and houses in Europe and elsewhere. We will also hear from some of our Portuguese friends whose companies have snagged contracts and businesses with Philippine entities. We are happy to know that the Portuguese company Steconfair, headed in the Philippines by our friend Enrique Santos, is in charge of laying down the tracks in the MRT-7 light rail transit project of the Philippine government. Then there is Sergio Silva with Saraiva y Asociados, another Portuguese company who won a design contract for a major residential condo project in Cebu, the first high-end residential condo that will be multi-certified as green and sustainable. We named this panel From Spices to Startups as it best encapsulates how we know the history of Portugal in our part of the world. When they first came to Southeast Asia in search of spices over 500 years ago, and carrying over this influence of the 21st century through the business and tech and digital ecosystems where both Filipino and Portuguese businesses actively participate. Before closing, I just want to point out another historical milestone in our bilateral relations. The 4th of July, 2021 marks the 75th year of diplomatic relations between our countries. We regained our independence 75 years ago, and Portugal sent Governor Gabriel Mauricio Teixeira from Macau to the Philippines to welcome the newest member of the Community of Nations. We look forward to more trade and economic exchanges between our two peoples. The Philippines offers a market of 110 million people. That's 100 million more than the population of
Ambassador, I think you're on mute.
Okay. At what part did I go on mute?
Please repeat your last two sentences.
Okay. Before closing, I just want to point out another historical milestone in our bilateral relations. The 4th of July, 2021 marks the 75th year of diplomatic relations between our countries. We regained our independence 75 years ago, and Portugal sent Governor Gabriel Mauricio Teixeira from Macau to Manila to welcome then the newest member of the Community of Nations. We look forward to more trade and economic exchanges between our two people. The Philippines offers a market of 110 million people. That's 100 million more than the population of Portugal. And we know that there are many Portuguese products that will do so very well in the Philippine market. We also invite Filipino and Portuguese investors to look into each other's countries for the vast potential that each offers the other. At this point, I'd like to turn over to our dear friend, Mr. Emmanuel Joaquim, the Chargé d'Affaires of the Portuguese Embassy in Jakarta, to give his opening remarks. Thank you, and I look forward to today's panel discussion.
Hello, good morning, everyone from Jakarta. And first of all, let me thank you, Ambassador Celia Feria, for having invited me to participate in this panel. It is an honor, even because this is indeed, as you said, a very important year in the relations between Portugal and the Philippines. You already mentioned it. It's 500 years since the Philippines received a group of ships of strangers coming from the Iberian Peninsula. 500 years since the death of Magellan or Fernando Magalhães and the victory of the Philippines in the battle, or of Lapu-Lapu in the Battle of Mactan. But also very important for us, the 75 years of our diplomatic relations. Actually, the day, the very big day was quite recently. We are very much in time to toast to it. It was on the 4th of July, as you mentioned. So thank you for that. And let me, of course, leave a reference about that. I would also like to congratulate the organization of the Congress, the Ateneu de Manila, CHAM, Centro de Humanidades of the Universidade Nova de Lisboa, and the Filipino National Quincentennial Commemoration Structure. Let me tell you that personally, I am particularly happy to participate in this panel, which is part of a huge Congress, a very ambitious project with a very important contribution, not only towards the knowledge of 500 years of interactions between Portugal and the Philippines, and between Asia and the Iberian Peninsula, but also to build on that history in progressing our relations into the future, in the present and towards the future. But I am personally especially happy to participate in this, and I was particularly happy to hear what Ambassador Feria said about that partnership between Ateneu de Manila and CHAM, because I myself am an alumnum from what we call FCSH, not from CHAM, unfortunately, but so let me tell you that personally I'm particularly happy to be a part of this. Of course, then again, this theme, from spices to startups, in the very title makes a comparison that couldn't be more pertinent. Because both in the basis of what was the beginning of our relation with Asia, so in the basis of the navigation, the first navigation journeys in the 15th and 16th centuries, what we had was knowledge, innovation, and technological development. It was about knowledge of navigation techniques, development of new navigation techniques, sharing knowledge with the peoples that have come by the Iberian Peninsula. It was about technological development, about developing new instruments of navigation, new kinds of ships. And indeed, that was the only way a small nation as Portugal was then, even smaller than it is today, could have managed to make the world smaller and make places that were so far away that we didn't even know they were there, make them closer. And nowadays we're witnessing a trend or a sort of dynamic that is also based on these three basic principles: knowledge, innovation, and technological development. That's what startups mean. And in the last decade, Portugal has seen a very dynamic environment for startups and a very important progress that 10 years later is showing its products in quite a few ways. Of course, Portugal now has very important references, has, for instance, 4 unicorns that are growing not only in Portugal, but internationally, that in the context of the Portuguese economy are now some of the most important companies Portugal has. But overall, the startups market has contributed, just to give you a number that reveals how significant startups are becoming in Portuguese economy. They are now worth 2.2% of our gross domestic product. That's another to such a dynamic environment and such a dynamic ecosystem for startups in Portugal. It's how open it is. It's internationalization. A proof of that is, for instance, the fact that 80% of the capital investment in the startups market in Portugal has international origins. Some of it from the Philippines, as as the ambassador already said, and of course we'll be able to see throughout this panel. But one of the reasons for that is because it's an environment we're trying to build to make it easier and to make our market more attractive for anyone with talent, with knowledge, with ideas to come to Portugal and without any material obstacles, with very little bureaucracy, be able to very fast establish themselves in the market. Nowadays, you can create a company practically in the hour, almost without having to go to the place. You can do it, a lot of it online. So there is a process that is being followed. It's being done in the private sector, but is being accompanied by public administration, of digitalization, of dematerialization, of modernization of the way we provide services to make it easier and to create a more attractive environment for the people who have ideas, for the entrepreneurs. Of course, startups are not just about technologies or are not just about IT, but indeed these play a very important role in the context of the Portuguese startups ecosystem. Just to let you have an idea of that, around 33% of the Portuguese startups are from the area of IT technologies. That's almost a third of all the startups. Of course, that is something that in government we also realize, and particularly this year in which Portugal held the presidency of the Council of the European Union, the digital transition was one of our main priorities. It is a recognition of that, because indeed we recognize the role startups played, for instance, in our last economic recovery. And that's also going to be the way of this recovery. This recovery won't be just a recovery. What we want is not to go back to what we were. No, it will be a recovery that at the same time, it will be supported by what we call a digital transition. Something that has already been happening. It happened before the crisis we're living now, but now it has become clearly the way of the future. And whatever we'll see tomorrow will be definitely different from what we had yesterday. And in the context of our presidency, one, well, of course, that priority, that pillar of our presidency, the digital transition, was constant throughout the semester, but had a special day, which was the Digital Day on March 19th, that was celebrated in Porto. And it was an occasion for the EU member states then signed 4 declarations on the digital transition. And a lot of them actually involving the startups, such as about sustainability in what comes to entrepreneurs. So startups are indeed a new world to discover. I won't say that it's an unknown world as yet, but there's still a lot to discover. Portugal is open for you to come and discover it, not only in the Web Summit throughout the year, not only in Porto, in Lisbon. Actually, that's another interesting fact about the Portuguese startups ecosystem, is that it's not as concentrated in Porto as in Lisbon as you'd think. It's quite spread throughout the country. we're a welcoming country, as you can see, a welcoming environment, not only for entrepreneurs, also for digital nomads. I am glad to have been noticing that the numbers have also been increasing when it comes to digital nomads, some of them from the Philippines. I am a witness of that at the embassy. Let me welcome all of you, and I hope today may bring in some knowledge or some novelty to those who haven't known about it yet, including myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Feria and Charge d'Affaires Joachim, for your opening remarks. Now, I would like to let you know what we have in store for us for the rest of the afternoon, or for the rest of the morning if it's in Portugal time. For the next 2.5 hours, we will have presentations from 7 speakers divided into 3 thematic discussions. We will have Theme 1, Economic Diplomacy Never Tasted This Good. Theme 2, Philippine Startups in the Web Summit, and Theme 3 on Philippine investment in Portugal and Portuguese investment in the Philippines. For each of these thematic sessions, we will have a discussion, talk show style, very relaxed and casual, but we'll also be entertaining questions. So I invite 3 audiences that we have in the Zoom room, on YouTube, and on Facebook while listening to our presentations, to the speakers' presentations. If you have questions, feel free to type them on the comment section. And for people in the Zoom room, later you could raise your hand and let's just have a fun discussion. Or if you want to share some memories, that's fine too. And our community managers will make sure to get the questions relayed to the speakers. So now we begin with our first thematic discussion. Our first theme, Economic Diplomacy Never Tasted This Good, has 2 speakers, and I would like to start by introducing the first speaker. Our first speaker is Assistant Secretary Gina Alagon Hamoralin. She is from the Office of International Economic Relations, Office of the Undersecretary for Multilateral Affairs and International Economic Relations of the Department of Foreign Affairs in Manila. Prior to her current appointment, she was an administrator of various offices of the Department of Foreign Affairs. She holds a doctorate degree in economics from the University of Santo Tomas, and she's a recipient of the Most Distinguished Public Service Medal from the United States Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on January 23, 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Assistant Secretary Gina Alagon Hamoralin, who will talk to us about alternate economic diplomacy projects, the Philippine Export Promotion Package, an opportunity for international exposure of Philippine exports. Ma'am Gina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for that kind introduction. I will be talking about alternative economic diplomacy. As you know, I assumed my position at the Office of International Economic Relations 3 months ago. So I'm really quite excited, and I'm going to share with you a few of our projects that we are planning this year. Her Excellency Ambassador Celia Ana Feria, Ambassador Charge d'Affaires Emmanuel Joaquim, Professor Paulo Jorge de Sousa Pinto, distinguished speakers, colleagues, and participants, a pleasant day. And of course, I wish to thank Dr. Nikki Carcicus as well. I take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Feria and her hardworking team at the Philippine Embassy in Portugal for inviting me to be part of this special panel, From Spices to Startups. Indeed, 2021 is an important year for the Philippines and Portugal relations as we celebrate our 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations. The Philippines' history intertwined with Portugal as early as 1521, as a Portuguese explorer, Ferdinand Magellan reached the shores of the Philippines. Today, we revisit the long-standing trade relations of the Philippines and Portugal and look at opportunities in expanding our economic diplomacy initiatives. From 2016 to 2020, Total trade with Portugal peaked in 2017 due to exports of ships, boats, and floating structures valued at $468 million, making Portugal the 31st trading partner of the Philippines. In the same year, Portugal ranked 21st in export markets and 69th in import sources of the Philippines, valued at $503 million and $11 million respectively. However, the 2017 peak was not sustained in the succeeding years as growth in the international shipping industry slowed down due to legal impediments and taxation issues. In 2018, exports to Portugal sharply dropped by 91%. Trade level continues to decline due to the effects of COVID-19 and competition with other exporting countries, which also tightened, particularly the establishment of the European Union and its trade agreements with Mexico in 2018, Vietnam, and Australia in 2019. So I may say that there is some kind of trade diversion effects of some of our trade agreements. However, in 2020, Portugal was the Philippines' 61st trading partner with total trade amounting to $38 million. Philippine exports to Portugal benefit from EU Generalized System of Preference, GSP+, which allows zero tariffs on selected products such as electronics, agricultural products, food products, among others. From 2016 to 2020, the utilization rate of GSP Plus ranged from 71% to 75%. In terms of imports, Portugal ranked 75th among the Philippines' import sources, with a volume of imports valued at 9.87 million. Top imports from Portugal were pharmaceutical products, electric machinery and equipment, nuclear reactors, boilers and mechanical appliances, pork and articles of pork, and miscellaneous edible preparations. On exports, in 2020, Philippine total exports to Portugal were valued at $28 million, making it the 51st export destination of the Philippines. Among the top exported products of Portugal were electronic products, other manufactured goods, tuna, textile yarns, fabrics, pineapple, and pineapple products. While our diplomatic relations remain strong and resilient, our trade relations have fluctuated over the years. It is for this reason that our office has come up with a Philippine Export Promotion Package, or PEP. This time around, the pandemic provides us with novel opportunities to enhance and bolster our economic diplomacy efforts, to include a reintroduction of the Philippines exports to the burgeoning market of Portugal and vice versa. The Office of International Economic Relations is spearheading the Philippine Export Promotion Package project, a collaborative undertaking of the Department of Foreign Affairs with the Center for International Trade Exposition and Mission, or CITEM, of the Department of Trade and Industry. The project seeks to promote and globalize Philippine micro, small, and medium enterprises exports in an effort to supplement reduced opportunities for traditional face-to-face international trade fairs and exhibitions during the pandemic. The project involves a selection of Philippine exports representing unique Philippine artisanal products, specially designed baskets by internationally renowned Filipino designer Kenneth Cobompue, will be sent to various Philippine embassies and consulates abroad, containing top quality Philippine liquor and chocolates as enticements to foreign purchase influencers and potential international buyers of Philippine products. The PEPP latches on themes surrounding this year's quintennial commemoration of the Magellan-Elcano circumnavigation of the globe. Thus, under the primary objective of export promotion, subtle hints of Philippine culture and heritage accompany the project in a timely and uplifting exercise of soft power diplomacy. The package is envisioned to translate into a celebration in a basket, quote unquote, by inspiration of Kobon Pue, as already mentioned. The basket is top adorned with a brush ship or karak and completely handmade by SC Biscara artisans in blue and white ocean weaving. A QR code invitation will lead to a microsite viewing of the quincentennial story digitally created by ODB Creative for the recipients of the package. Food has always been a gateway in understanding cultures and diversity. The hand-woven baskets will contain Philippine food and liquor products to inspire a festive liquor chocolate pairing experience. The main liquor selection is a bottle of Don Papa rum, while other liquor options are Tanduay rum or Archipelago gin, depending on the market objectives and taste in the respective countries. Chocolates are from Auro, Teo, and Philo, and Tigre y Oliva, which represent the budding and gradually being recognized high-class Filipino chocolate industry. Allow me to gather your interest closer into the intricate markings of these fine Filipino exports. Archipelago Gin is a small batch spirit distilled by Full Circle Craft distillers in the southern outskirts of Manila. The company is committed to true craft, which results in a top quality small batch copper distilled and handcrafted spirit. The distillers use tropical fruits and botanicals to extract their products' exotic flavors and aromas, satisfying every level of gin aficionado there may be. Don Papa Rum is a premium aged small batch Filipino rum from the provincial region of Negros Occidental. Distilled from the finest sugar cane of the Negrense haciendas, Don Papa is first aged 7 years in oak barrels in the foothills of Mount Canlaon before being blended. Its bottle is designed to give the receiver an old world feel, reminiscent of sea voyages and galleon ships of the past. Tanduay is a Philippine national icon and has been in the Philippines and international markets for more than 160 years. In 2012, Tanduay began to tap the global market by launching the Tanduay Asia Rum in the United States. As of 2019, it is the world's largest rum brand based on sales volume. Next slide. Founded in 2015 and launched in 2017, Auro became an internationally awarded premium bean-to-bar chocolate brand rooted in sustainability through direct trade. The proud chocolate company produces fine cacao and chocolate bars made from directly sourced beans of the Mindanao farming partners. Teo and Philo translates to chocolate and love, the very same elements that go into every bar of their chocolates. The company makes use of high-quality local ingredients from the cacao beans of Davao in Mindanao, the world-famous sugar of Bacolod, and the renowned craftsmanship of Filipinos. Lastly, Tigre y Oliva is a producer of single-origin craft chocolate from the Philippines, focused on craftsmanship and sustainability. It currently serves a small discriminating local market, having its only international presence in Singapore so far, and seeking to make more headway in the thriving markets of Asia and beyond. The 700 PEPP baskets will be distributed to 40 foreign service posts of the Philippines in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. As a whole, it celebrates Philippine craftsmanship and appreciation for the country's indigenous natural ingredients as standard bearers of what is truly the Philippines for the world. It highlights homegrown specialties that champion the flavors of our archipelago and promotes world-class products anchored on sustainability. Now, let's go to the delicious part. But there is another export opportunity to explore. Sardines are considered a staple food and delicacy for both the Philippines and Portugal. Given its abundant supply, sardines are one of the most accessible and affordable protein sources for Filipinos. Next. The Mabuti sardines. I think this will be touched by the next speaker, but allow me to speak briefly about the Mabuti sardines. This is an iconic Portuguese product, Mabuti sardines, which was famous in the Philippines in the 1960s. It was a sardine brand made specifically for the Philippine market. However, the trade was not sustained in view of the need to find bigger markets for the product. However, Portugal exported other sardine brands to the Philippines in 2011, 2013, and 2015. Given the country's demand for sardines, Portuguese companies, particularly Mabuti Sardines, may find again opportunity to revive the brand in the local market and offer a taste of Portuguese culture the product can proudly present. Even the name itself, Mabuti, is Filipino, meaning good and kind. Other economic diplomacy initiatives. Beyond this PEPP bus package project, my office, in collaboration with national agencies, has another important economic diplomacy initiative. Next. The DFA, through my office, will organize a halal webinar this year for geographically selected Philippine embassies and consulates aimed at deepening the level of understanding of halal trade among our Philippine diplomats abroad. Halal certified products have become an alternative choice because of its characteristic health and ethical standards. Both Muslim and non-Muslim demand for halal products and services has risen of late, urging many of our MSMEs to seek opportunities in satisfying the huge potential of the halal industry, ranging from food, cosmetics, health products, and even Islamic banking. The webinar is aimed at understanding the fundamentals of the halal industry, the international certification process, and the current demands and opportunities to tap the global halal market. The webinar will identify challenges, trends, and strategies surrounding the domestic halal ecosystem. While COVID-19 has restricted the conduct of face-to-face opportunities for business, networking, the pandemic silver lining has led to an international strengthening of commercial relations through digital means. Online trade fairs and exhibitions will benefit our countries by leveraging the use of technologies and digital tools for trade promotion. The regular conduct of online trade programs can keep foreign companies abreast with developments in the dynamic Philippine market. Examples of these are CITEM Manila Fame, IFEX Philippines, Sustainability Solutions Expo, Create Philippines, and Go Local. Next. The DFA is currently conceptualizing an online platform which contains the top products of the Philippines that can potentially be exported to other countries such as Portugal. The platform will provide Portuguese consumers and businesses with sufficient contact details of Philippine exporters, providing ease of end-to-end communication, as well as expanding networks of opportunity and strengthening connection between Philippine exporters and their foreign partners. In the succeeding slides, you may directly visit the online fair schedules as well as obtain more information of the products featured in the Philippine Export Promotion Package. We have given copies of this presentation to the Philippine Embassy. Those who may be interested can contact the Philippine Embassy. In closing, I take this opportunity to thank my team at the Department of Foreign Affairs, Office of International Economic Relations, particularly Director Joselito Chad Jacinto of the Economic Diplomacy Unit, and Assistant Director Bien Janine Balocoting of the Economic Research Unit for assisting me today on a Saturday weekend in the office for this presentation. And of course, she's not here at the moment, but I also want to thank my assistant, Diane, for also being here. And lastly, also to the Ateneo de Manila University for helping to make this event possible. And of course, last but not the least, my special thanks again to Ambassador Feria and her team for their passionate dedication in promoting the Philippines through its various economic and cultural activities. Our bilateral relations are clearly enjoying a renewal or even a renaissance sparked by the 500-year anniversary of Christianity in the Philippines, which we are celebrating this year. No passage of time shall dim this common heritage. Marami pong salamat. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Secretary Gina Hamoralin. Oh my God, what an opening talk with chocolate and alcohol. I'm so sorry I couldn't stop myself from grabbing Don Papa from my own shelf. I am so tempted to start drinking. I was about to pour, then she mentioned the word halal. But of course, also we have a panel to go through, so no drinking yet. What I'm going to do now is call the next presenter, someone I have been waiting to listen to, because ever since we started planning for this panel, one of the most fun panels we planned, Mabuti Sardines has been at the lips of both Ambassador Cookie and Paulo Pinto. So I'm very excited to listen to our next presentation from Nuno Rocha, Sales Director of Piñayes and Compañía Limitada. He's the Commercial Director, and he has had 10 years of experience in top management and sales and marketing roles in the food industry, directly connected with the development of international markets. He has a degree in economics and an MBA from the University of Coimbra. Nuno Rocha, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Good morning and good afternoon from Portugal. I'd like to thank everyone for this kind invitation to join you today on this wonderful cycle of events, and particularly a very special appreciation to all the organization behind this event and the Honorable Embassy of the Philippines in Portugal, Ambassador Celia Ferry, of course, for the kind invitation to participate in this historic celebration between both countries and regions. Not sure if 9 a.m., 4 p.m. is the best time to snack on sardines, but I hope to at least open the appetite for this topic with this short story of a cherished Portuguese export to the Philippines called the Mabuti sardines. Okay, so I will just share my screen with you. Here we go. I think you can see. So the agenda that I brought today to share with you is a little bit about an overview of the company, who exactly produces Mabuti sardines, who we are, the values and mission behind not only this product, but all the products that we do, the dream, the brands that we still maintain on the 21st century, and of course, focusing on what brings us here, Mabuti, a little bit about the history, the origin, where it comes from, the evolution throughout the whole years, the connection with the Philippines, and of course, not least important, the most secret part of Mabuti. Why is it different? Why it tastes different? Why and how can you recognize the Mabuti if you find it in the shelf? Okay, so I'll start just a little bit by briefing you on Conservas Pinhais, exactly who we are. Conservas Pinhais is a century-old company founded in 1920 and dedicated to the canning industry, particularly specialized in the artisanal production of sardines from the Atlantic coast. So we are located in the heart of Matosinhos. Porto is the second largest city in Portugal. And the factory itself is an architectonic jewel that has been maintained throughout the past 100 years as an historical building that withstood the various challenges of the century and the pressure of the Industrial Revolution, preserving its unique identity and structure, as well as the original architectural features of that time. For this reason, our products are quite famous, and the building itself is quite famous for international visitors, and the products can be found right now in over 40 countries. On a full day of operation, I can tell you, for example, that we have 135 employees, and 80% of these wonderful ladies that work with us, they are the qualified artisans that produce the sardines. So every sardine that we do are made by hand with a special detail. These artisans constitute the Pinhais family in its essence and proudly assert themselves as the holders of the knowledge and the artisanal legacy that has been passed from generation to generation. In terms of values, Pinhais' mission and core business, of course, is to aim to produce the best canned sardines in the world and to provide the best consumer experience with a distinctive Portuguese, unique, traditional, and handmade product. In a world of machines, our values remain focused mainly on excellence in tradition, quality, and family within a secular art part of the Portuguese cultural heritage. A very important aspects are the originality, the authenticity, and the exclusivity that stand out as the main criteria of this vision, which is born from the teachings that we had from the past onto the guidelines that guide us onto the future. And speaking a little bit about the future, the dream that I brought you here, just that I think it's important to share with you, is the dream of having a live or a living museum in the factory of Conservas Pinhais. So as a result of the social economic evolution registered in Portugal during the second half of the 20th century, practically all canning units ended up closing, were relocated or drastically changed their process to support the international demand and the global demand, being Pinhais one of the few that, in one of the few canneries in the world actually, that actually resisted to the revolution and maintain a strictly artisanal process of producing canned sardines. So this needs to be shared, and we've been feeling this from 2010, 2012, since a long time ago, that consumers want to understand exactly why is it different. It's not just a canning factory. It's much more than that, than this. His knowledge, his heritage, his history. And I'm happy to share with you that in 2021, celebrating the centenary plus 1 year because of COVID, things got a little bit delayed. We are opening the live museum of Conservas Pinhais, where Mabuti will have, of course, a special place. And people can go inside the factory, see how it's made at the moment when it's being made. So it's a very special moment for us. And I just wanted to share with you, if you have the chance to come to Portugal, you will see it for yourselves. So speaking a little bit about the brands that we still maintain, we've had a lot of brands in the past. So throughout the ages, we decided to clean or at least make more efficient the portfolio. And we maintain on the 21st century, in 2021, we maintain the Nudi brand, which is registered since 1935. And it's present currently in 30 countries. And it's better well known for the spiced sardines in olive oil. The Pinhais brand is the most famous in the domestic market in Portugal. So besides Portugal, it's present in 7 countries and it's been registered since 1926. And the most famous is the standard sardines in virgin olive oil. No spices, no flavor, just the sardines in olive oil. And of course, Mabuti. Mabuti, at least for our records, and of course we are speaking about very old brands that not always we have the records to show it, but from our records, we can see that it's been registered since 1950 and is currently present in 2 countries, United States and Philippines. Not every year, but sometimes it's present in both countries at the same time. The bestseller recipe, I don't need to tell you about it. It's the small sardines in tomato sauce, and currently it's presented on this wonderful hand-packed can. Some other brands that you may know or may have seen in the shelves in the Philippines also, Matapan sardines, Matuza, Mascato sardines, Amuret, Rio sardines. We've had many brands in the past. Of course, not all of them have the same impact that Mabuti has or Nuri has. Nevertheless, some of the icons here, you may recognize it from past events on the market. So sharing now a little bit about the history of Mabuti. Since the First World War, canned sardines were already used as the perfect solution to supply the warfare, of course. It's a nutritious solution, easy to carry, plus with a long expiration date. This was obviously the golden age for any cannery that was producing canned sardines. After World War II ended in 1945, canneries had the same production capacity installed, but no longer the military demand to sell out the products on the market. Therefore, after this moment, the commercial market started to arise. But now, with a difference, only the best and the feasible products could be on the market. And this led to a lot of canneries to close up or relocate or adjust their production capacity to industrial sites. In the case of Mabuti, our records can be traced to somewhere between 1946 and 1950, when the first non-military orders started to arise from the Philippine market, where many people had already tasted our sardines in tomato sauce, but before in a different context, of course. So they wanted to bring on the flavor again, now outside of the war, of course, and this from our records is actually how the gastronomical relation was set and has lasted throughout the past 75 years. So Filipino took Mabuti sardines a bit around the world when in the 1970s, also a new flow of immigration into the US, Mabuti ended up going along with his diaspora and taking part of the culture, but now on a different continent. In terms of evolution of the packagings, depending on the demographics, you will see images that most of them I have never, I didn't saw before I prepared this presentation, because I had to do a lot of investigation since 1950, as you can imagine. Many things have changed, but I can tell you that from the beginning, it was packed on a white can. This is the can that was used in the war. So it was basically to supply the warfare. And then when the war was over, 1946, we started packing on the Mabuti brand. And we started packing, of course, because there it was a different quality and people were able to acquire the quality. In the wartime, it doesn't matter about the quality, it just matter about the quantity and the supply of food. But after 1946, things changed a little bit, and that was the presentation by that time. In the 1970s, it's the golden canned age. When the lithographic industry was at its top in Portugal, the famous Mabuti can with the key opener was very famous for the golden appearance and the flattened size that was perfect to carry everywhere at the back pocket. Once the IRA cans in the key opening system was actually forbidden by law, the golden can age in the easy opener was the most common option to find. Most recently, after 2015, as a way to pay respect to the origins of the brand and detailed handwork that is involved in the production of each can, we decided to unite both aspects and recover the hand wrap visual with the golden can, but now inside the wrapping. So as you see, the connection with the Philippines or between Portugal and the Philippines has come from a long way, sharing both the good and the challenging moments, always with a very special flavor. 3/4 of a century have passed, 75 years. We are very happy and proud to keep testifying that Portugal has a true Mabuti relation with the Philippines, not only through food, but through people and its culture, of course. So this is what you may find in the market. On your left side, Mabuti in tomato sauce. This is the presentation, the most famous recipe. And we launched it. Of course, it's not as famous. It's conquering new consumers, and it's a way also to innovate under the same insignia of the brand. Okay. Secrets, and this is the final part. The original secrets of Mabuti has to do a big part of it with the process that's involved. And this is something that cannot be replicated in any factory except ours, because of the non-usage of machinery and the knowledge that the ladies that do the product have for generations. Something that is quite unique. In a world of machines, of course, in fast food, we are proud to maintain such a rare artisanal process, far from being efficient. It's much more the keeping of a legacy and the commitment to quality. And our process, of course, starts by sourcing the best and selected fish from the market. It arrives every day around 7 a.m., really in the beginning of the day. And our ladies, they hand cut and prepare the sardines to perfection one by one. Then the fish dives into the fresh running water, and the sardines are cooked individually, one by one. And when I say one by one, of course, I don't mean that every sardine is placed one by one. What I mean is that we cook the sardines before canning the fish inside the can. Why is this? Because they are cooked separately, and this is how you, at the final product, this is how you have really the perfect tenderness and the well done fish. But obviously this takes more time, is not efficient, but it's something that we want to keep as a quality indicative for the product. So after this cooking process, it's a slow cooking process, the ingredients are cut fresh and placed inside the can. And also speaking about the tomato sauce, the fish is then hand fitted to the can. The olive oil and the tomato sauce is added on and the can is closed. After sterilization, each can is carefully hand wrapped. Okay. Three parts of the remaining secrets, the limited edition. And some people might ask, it's really hard to find Mabuti in the shelves. Why is this? This is because it's a limited edition. Mabuti, it's made with very small sardines. We have, of course, we have a conscience and responsibility to maintain our activity in Portugal with the highest respect for the sustainability of the fish that we work with. So we only fish during a certain period of time. This means that we can only produce sardines with the respect for the reproduction cycle of the fish. So it's very hard for us to get this specific kind of fish. Therefore, it's a limited edition. Every year we have some capacity to produce, we put it on the market and it's done. We cannot go overlapping this kind of quantity, therefore putting in risk not only the sustainability of the raw materials and the fish, of course, but at the same time compromising the quality that we want to deliver to our customers. The second biggest secret, the tomato sauce. The tomato sauce that distinguishes Mabuti and made it famous has been made for 3 generations inside our factory. A secret detail is that we don't buy processed tomato sauce. We use only fresh ingredients prepared on the day that we are canning the product through a secret recipe that was carried in this generation by Madam Emilia, that you can see at the left side of the screen. So we prepared the tomato sauce, and when I'm at the factory, seeing the tomato sauce being prepared, it's amazing, because when we pour the tomato sauce inside the cans, it's still smoking. So you cannot get any fresher than this. And of course, you know, the flavor, it's a very distinctive flavor of tomato sauce sardines. Like any success brand, we've had several attempts, of course, in the past to copycat our products. So if you ever see a can of Mabuti in the market and you buy a can, always be sure that you check 3 points. First, it needs to be hand wrapped. The can inside is white and the can outside is golden. This is a Mabuti sardine. And of course, most relevant in all this, you will see that the Mabuti sardine after you taste it. It should taste like a Mabuti. Okay. Thank you very much for the time. I hope the voice was clearly listened.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear and delicious.
So I leave our contacts in below. If you have any questions besides the conference moment, please feel free to send me an email or call us. We'll be available for everything. So thank you very much for the invitation and for the time.
Thank you very much. You're not leaving us yet because you will be joining us for the question and answer and discussion. I remind everyone here in the Zoom room that you can put your questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand if you want to share your own stories or if you want to ask your question directly. Right now, I'm going to invite the speakers to join me on screen. There will be the 2 speakers, presenters, me as moderator, and anybody who raised their hand will also join us. My first question, if it's okay, talk show style, would be to both speakers, but let me start with Assistant Secretary Hamoralin. You can't entice us with all those pictures without us wondering, can average reasonable people actually access that Philippine export promotion package? It's so pretty. The basket made by Cobonpue with all the goodies inside. I can just imagine big corporations ordering tons of this to give us gifts to all their partners. Is this something that's just limited to the 700 recipients that you have on your list? Is this something you can buy, ma'am?
You mean the basket?
Yes, that beautiful
Yeah.
thing you just showed.
But I think that basket was specially designed by Cobonpue for this project, and it's one of a kind. But if they want to buy, I'm sure they can, but directly with Cobonpue.
Not with all the goodies inside as well, no.
No, it's separate.
Okay, then my question would be to Sir Nuno Rocha. You mentioned in your presentation that some years the sardines gets to the Philippines, some years not. It reminded me of the galleon trade. Sometimes the ships arrive, sometimes they don't. What does that mean? Why are there years where they come to the Philippines and years that they don't?
The export to the Philippines, it's not constant. It depends, of course, on the demand from the market. We've been feeling since 2015, of course, due to the process that I showed you. It's a very costly process. Of course, we could have 2 or 3 machines that would replace 135 people on the production side and make the products much cheaper. But this is not the concept or not the genesis of our company. Nevertheless, frankly speaking, the products are expensive compared to the normal supermarket product. And sometimes the economy in the Philippines or the purchase power in the Philippines, it's a little bit better. Sometimes it's a little bit worse. It depends on actually, I would not say that it's every year that changes, but every 2 years it might change. And what happens also is, as I mentioned you, in the 70s, there was a big flow into the United States. So before we had 1 market, then we started having 2 markets, and now we have a limited capacity of production. Therefore, we can only allocate the same quantity to 2 demanding markets. So we try to have the best of the 2 worlds and have the products available for everyone, but sometimes it's not possible. Either it's for economical reasons or for the scarcity of the product itself. It works like this.
Our dean from the School of Humanities, Jonathan Chua, asked this question: can we buy them here? Can we buy them here?
Yes, I think so. There are some websites that are currently selling them, but I think they buy from someone in the US, so it's not direct. If you want to eventually find some local stores that have it, what I would recommend you is you can send me an email. I'll place you in contact with our partner in the Philippines, in Manila, and eventually I can establish you the direct connection. You'll be very honored and very grateful also to speak with any consumers.
So, Dr. Chua, if the faculty receives Mabuti sardines as Christmas gift this year, we will know where you got the idea.
Indeed, you will.
Now, there's a question I'm going to read. I think it's for Ma'am Gina, but anybody else in the Zoom room can jump in if you have information.
I do have a question in the chat room.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I can quickly answer instead of being writing to Madam Luisa Twiza. She asked me, having a family of 135 workers, how does Pinhais sustain its tradition of workers?
Yes.
We have 1 or 2 training for each particular process. What happens is we don't hire people on a temporary basis. We hire people with no term contract, meaning that our intention is to keep them for many years, as much as possible, as long as they want to work with us, as long as, of course, as the work is being well done. In the process that's involved is that we don't hire, for example, 20 or 30 people at the same time. We hire 1, 2 per week, 3 per week, and limited to this, that allows us to have a proper training, because this involves a lot of handwork train and passed on experience. And we place the younger ladies next to the older ladies. And it's funny to see in the production exactly what happens, because the younger have less experience, and when they start doing the more complicated or the most demanding works, the older ladies and more experienced are the ones to say, look at your can. That is not a Pinhais can. It's not a Mabuti can. So try it again, and I'll be here to help you out. And this is the secret of the artisanal method. And I hope to have answered to your question.
Wonderful. That's such a wonderful answer. I'm reading a question here from, I think, social media. How well are the Filipino products that are being exported to Portugal received? Is there a market for them there? Is there a demand for those? Is there a Filipino community? Are they the main consumers? And sorry, it's a run on there. What Filipino food products are popular in Portugal? Ma'am Gina or anybody else who has something to contribute may answer this question.
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a community in Portugal. It's probably about what's less than 2,000, and they're spread out between Lisbon and Porto. And yes, we have some Filipino stores, but because the number is very limited, it's not like next door Spain where you have over 50,000. So there's a big market for Philippine products. There are 2 physical stores in Lisbon, and then the rest are online stores. So the embassy helps in promoting Philippine ingredients. In fact, we have this program in the embassy. It's called Made in the Philippines, available in Portugal. So we started giving them as Christmas gifts. So if you're going to be getting Mabuti sardines for Christmas, our friends here in Portugal have been getting baskets of Philippine food products. So we're focusing on Philippine-made, manufactured food products and ingredients. We started, yes, we actually give Don Papa. So we have Mamacita, Don Papa, Mamacita, Don Papa, Pro Foods as partners. And then we also, as a way to support the Filipino stores here, we buy a lot of the ingredients and we give them as gifts. Those who have been receiving them have been people, our colleagues in the Foreign Service, some ambassadors, and some of our friends in the business, our contacts. And the idea really is to make them familiar with Filipino products. It's a beginning, and we hope that by promoting Filipino food, which we used to do before the pandemic, every time we have cultural activities, everything was Filipino food. I think Paolo knows that. Everybody that we invited, we serve on coconut cups, coconut shells. We cook. We have rice. We've made a recipe, a standard menu. It's rice toppings with vegetarian laing, with adobo, and with fried lumpia. That's our standard recipe. And then we have the sweets that we dress up pretty beautifully in Philippine baskets and stuff. So it's been an effort, and it's part of our DNA already to promote Philippine products. There's a long way to go in Portugal, but we're doing our best. And it's probably the most interesting part of my work in promoting the Philippines through the beautiful and delicious products that we have, which is why we decided we asked the DFA to give us more ideas, and that PEP project of the DFA is just really along the lines of what we're doing here in Portugal.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful, something we covet just by looking at it. That's wonderful.
And the other thing, if I may add, I think the next thing that we can do, because I know it's this whole thing actually is Paulo Pinto's idea of coming up with this Mabuti sardine story. I think, Nuno, what we can do is we can do food pairing, a Filipino cracker that's available, Filipino crackers that are available here in Portugal, and we prepare it, like they do wine and cheese pairing. We can do cracker and sardine pairing with Mabuti sardines, and we can start that.
Ambassador Cookie, there are many questions coming in. If you
Okay.
don't mind, I'm just going to read them fast so that you can just pick which ones to answer and you know how many they are. So let me start with, do you have an idea why Mabuti became the name of this product? Before you answer, more questions, probably from the architects in the room. Is there a story behind the staircase in the Piñayes factory? Another question, oh no, not question, comment. Somebody checked. It's available on Shopee. So people who want to buy Mabuti sardines may do so online. And there's also a question in the chat box. How is Piñayes, how's your company's future-proofing your production and capacity to meet demands and maintain its competitive advantage with cheaper raw material, climate change, diminishing stock, and the automation of the canning process? But that's not all. One last. There is a curiosity between the difference between Spanish sardines and Portuguese sardines recipe. Okay, there you go. Enjoy.
So let's try to start from the beginning. Mabuti name. The company, since 1920, the company has been in several markets. 95% of what we've done, it's for the export market. So several brands, several markets means that in each market, the product was described differently. And I can give you two more examples. Nuri is another brand that we have. It's currently the biggest brand that the company has. Nuri in Turkish means brilliant, means light. So this was an attribute that someone that many years ago in Turkey had the product in her hands and said Nuri. And Mabuti has a similar history. You know the taste of Mabuti. So what better word to describe a product that was in the hands? So basically, each description, each word has significance on the market where it was basically started growing up from the beginning. So Mabuti was eventually registered as the name, and many years after, I think it was not exactly on the same moment, we discovered that Mabuti means good, and it has a strong connection with the language. So we're more happy to the connection between the.
And then the staircase?
The staircase. The staircase was made by an architect in 1919, 1 year before the factory was completed. And the staircase is that it remained there as like a small secret from the architectural team. If you go below the staircase, and if you look up, what you see is the shape of a sardine. In the eye of the sardine is the light bulb that's on top of the ceiling. So it's an amazing effect that was standing there for, I don't know, maybe more than 80 years. And only recently that we were digging on the records of the company, and we found out this delicious detail that the architect left. So it's the moment and the place that you actually see that you're in the sardine factory. Just look up and you have a sardine on top of you. Okay.
And the difference between Portuguese and Spanish sardines?
That's a good question. I would like to know, because I've seen Spanish sardines or Spanish style sardines in some markets. I've never had the chance to try these. Nevertheless, what I can tell you is we use small sardines, fresh sardines that we catch on the Atlantic coast, let's say like this. Spanish sardines are probably from the north part of the country because they don't have the Atlantic coast as we do it on the western side. And I don't know about the recipes. Probably something different about the recipes. What I can tell you, yes.
Paulo's raising his hand. I don't know if he has an answer or a question. Paulo, you're raising your hand.
No, it's just well, it's a technical question to Nuno.
Yes.
Well, thank you everybody for this. This is quite a fascinating story. I was introduced to the Mabuti sardine story by the ambassador Celia Thiria a few months ago. She was there at the factory. She even the first time I tasted Mabuti sardines was at the embassy. She gave me a can which I showed to my Portuguese fellows who never heard about it. And just a small question, technical detail to Nuno. We are talking about petingas, right?
Yes.
Because when in English, when you say small sardines, but in Portuguese, there is a specific word that is petingas. Yes. And is there any problem now fishing this sort of, because I can see petingas at the market.
Yes, thanks for the question, and it helped me clarify also the part of why it's limited. In Portugal, to explain to you all, we have a restriction on the fishing, meaning that we can only fish in Portuguese waters due to sustainability and reproduction cycle between April and October, which means that this period represents when the sardines are growing up. Not when they are reproducing, not when they are baby, but when they are growing up. So there is no risk for the sustainability. The small sardines or the petingas, like Paulo was mentioning, are on the beginning of the cycle. They are on the waters in the beginning of the year, which means that on this period of time, we need to be very careful not to overload the fish or fish too small size to have some impact on the further reproductional cycle of the sardine. And that's why it's so rare to find small sardines, and that's why it's so hard to produce big quantities or increase the quantities of mabuti, because after a certain point, the sardines are bigger. They are not the same smaller sardines, and we need to be careful not to impact the sustainability and the reproductional cycle. If we have this, then we will not have sardines to deliver to anyone. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Ma'am Gina, were you going to say something? Oh, no, okay.
Was it clear?
Yes, and that's quite linked to the question also on future-proofing.
Yes.
Your production capacity to meet competitive advantage, climate change, diminishing stock, and the automation of the canning process.
Yes. As you can imagine, with a 100 years old company, we've been through all these stages or all these decision points several times. So in the 70s, when the Industrial Revolution was at a stop, we had to make a decision. Are we going to buy machines and fire all the people and make this run much more efficiently, produce more and adjust the production capacity? Or are we going to maintain our process as it was in 1920? And we did this decision, of course, and this is a commitment that we still have today. And with the museum open, is the commitment that we want to maintain for the next 100 years, if it's possible. So our capacity of production, of course, it can grow. It can grow depending on the planning that we do, the yearly planning, and the availability of sardines. Just like I mentioned, if the small sardines are available, then we are able to 2 years or 3 years in a row have mabuti sardines to deliver. But it's always a limited capacity of growth. And of course, we could buy the machines and source in other sources in a different kind of quality product and have much more to deliver. But it's just not our genesis, and we prefer to remain small, authentic, and genuine than just to be grow. It's not better or worse than any other strategy. It's just a strategy that in a commitment that we have with our product and our consumers.
So maybe, Ma'am Gina, for a parting shot, I will recycle the future proofing and turn it towards Philippine exports. Can you probably we'll wrap up with that final question. Are we future proofing our Philippine exports in some way? So.
Well, I hope so. I hope that in the future we may have more connection. Sorry.
No, I'm so sorry. I think, Ma'am Gina, you're on mute. Yeah. So what are...
sorry. Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Oh, sorry, sir. No, please go ahead. Feel free. If you want to do a parting shot to wrap up. There were so many questions for you. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just complimenting that. I really wish that in the future we can recover and enhance the close relation with the Philippine market. Of course, right now it's 1 year, yes, 1 year, no. I hope it's every year, yes, in the future, and we can have not only the close relation through food, but also increase the relation that we already have, and it's very positive with the Filipino market in people and culture. Okay.
So I said I was recycling the question to Ma'am Gina. Is the Philippines future-proofing its export products to meet demands, maintain competitive advantage with cheaper competition, and also, the products that you showed are they're facing a challenging market. So promote them. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. It took me a while to think about your question. Of course, times are, Mark, consumer tastes are really sometimes changes very fast, so we have to keep up with consumer taste, and we do that by constantly keeping abreast of trends, being present in social media and technologies. We have to be always adapt to new technologies. But of course, we have to keep a balance between technologies and also keeping that culture, the artisan part, because we also want to preserve the being Filipino-ness of some of our products. Sometimes there are some products which really, like mabuti sardines, I was listening, it's really a kind of product that you cannot really mass produce, because of the limited stocks, the constraints in supply. So there are products that cannot really be expanded, no matter how much you want it, because of limits in supply, not of raw materials, but you can still preserve the quality. But there are still some products that you can mass produce. You can scale it up by using technologies, and also maybe improve more investors, more capital. So it depends on the kind of product that we want to export. So for natural products, like we are exporting fish and uh, fruits, no, to EU and Portugal. These are really the products of the land. So we are also trying to promote sustainability, that we'll be able to continue producing these natural products. So it's a balance between sustainability and being able also to meet the demands of the market. So it's not really very easy, but we're trying to do that. So to maintain the quality and sustainability of our products. That's what I can say.
Well, it's really been a very delicious first hour. I wish we could continue some more, but we have two more discussions to go. Thank you very much, Ma'am Gina, and thank you very much, Nuno Rocha. We are now going to move to our next theme. So our next theme, we came from spicy sardines, we're moving to startups. Our next theme is Philippine Startups in Web Summit, and we have two speakers. Let me now begin by introducing our first speaker for this second discussion theme. Our speaker, Froilan Emil Di Pamintuan, has been the Director and Commercial Attaché of the Paris-based Philippine Trade and Investment Center with jurisdiction over Portugal, France, Spain, Italy, Monaco, and Turkey. PTIC is the international commercial section of the Philippines Department of Trade and Industry and is attached to the Philippine embassies within the region. Froilan also served as the country's commercial attaché in Tokyo for the period of October 2011 to December 2014, and in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam from November 2007 to September 2011. Prior to joining the DTI Philippine Foreign Trade Service Corps, he worked for the fast-moving consumer goods, healthcare, and investment industries. And might I just say, I think he's an Atenean. So let's all welcome. You have the floor, to talk about promoting the country's startups, Philippine participation in Web Summit. Froilan Pamintuan, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for the very kind introduction. Just give me a few seconds to share my screen so that everybody can see my presentation. I think I might.
We can proudly claim you as our alumnus, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What was your course in Ateneo? Sorry,
I was enrolled in the management economics program of the Ateneo some years ago, some decades ago, Nikki, when you were still probably very young.
Oh, we don't know that for sure, but
okay. Sorry if I'm having a little trouble with my presentation. Can you see the presentation right now?
No, we can see your email, dear.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But it's okay. Take your time.
Let me do that again. Okay, I think I found it. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Anyway, thanks again for the very kind introduction, Nikki. Magandang hapon po sa lahat ng ating mga kababayan who are watching from the Philippines, and bom dia to our colleagues and friends who are coming in from Portugal and from other parts of the world. I just want to say that was a very interesting presentation earlier on. It was nice hearing about a specific commodity that is being exchanged between the Philippines and Portugal. Mabuti sardines probably is one of the proofs that commercial relations between the Philippines and Portugal did not end with Ferdinand Magellan encountering spices. The first ever Philippine business presentation was held in December 2017. We planned some possible missions to the Philippines as well, but also arranged some of our contacts from Portugal to attend the International Food Exhibition in Manila and the Manila Fame, which is a design exhibition that is curated by the DTI Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, which is the CITEM. One email, however, sometime in the late 2017, took a bit of our attention. A letter from a certain Clementine Baig addressed to the Philippine Embassy in Lisbon, inviting us, the Philippines, to be part of the largest startup event in Europe, which is called the Web Summit. The DTI in the Philippines had been supporting startup events around that time through programs such as Slingshot, happening one after another in the Philippines. The Philippine Startup Act was also being discussed during that time back home in the Philippines to provide assistance to emerging enterprises as they pursue their creative and technical ventures. We initially consulted with our teams from back home, and they had very good things to say about Web Summit. The problem was it was going to be very expensive to be organizing a delegation to faraway Portugal. This was the reason why initially a Philippine participation to Hong Kong Rise came out first in April 2019. Hong Kong Rise is organized by the same movers of the Lisbon Web Summit. 3 government agencies identified the Philippine participation in the Rise Conference 2019 as one of the key projects under the Startup Assistance Program 2019 to 2023. This led to 28 startups being awarded tickets and conference badges by the DOST and the DICT, and the DTI securing funding for the business-to-business meetings in the pavilion stand in Hong Kong Rise. To date, the government agencies, or these 3 government agencies, continue to work together to promote and assist Philippine startups through the following initiatives, such as the Digital Startups Philippine Program of the DICT, the Technology Transfer Support for Nurturing Tech Startups by the DOST, and of course, the DTI Export Marketing Bureau Startup Pilipinas, which provides government support to scale up local startups, specifically by participating in international competitions or events such as the Web Summit. That's why in November 2019, given very limited resources, yet banking on its network, our embassy in Lisbon was able to gather the Filipino participants who came on their own for the Web Summit in 2019 in Lisbon. Ambassador Cookie organized and participated in the events for the startups, and based on the feedback that we got from the Filipino startup participants, we found out that there was really great interest and a high recommendation for the Philippines to participate in the Web Summit, mainly because it was a good opportunity to network. It was a good opportunity to meet like-minded contacts from the global scale startup ecosystem. It was also a good opportunity to get to talk to potential mentors that you can meet during the event. So just the same, we continued to nurture this presence of the Philippine startups in the Web Summit in 2019. And in fact, some of the participants in the Web Summit 2019, you will see on the screen right now, this is a special photo that was taken during one of the meetings that was called by the Philippine Embassy in Lisbon. And maybe I can just cite some of the names or some of the companies that were participating during this particular event. We had CoinDrop, which is a 2-year-old startup offshoot of a finance company in the Philippines. They were able to set up their own booth during Web Summit 2019. And their platform is intended to provide a varied means of financial services to Filipinos. DevCon was also present, represented by their managing director. They wanted to push for providing access to relevant tech education to Filipinos, and they felt that the Web Summit could provide them key learnings which they can apply to some of their events in the Philippines. Indigo Research, which positions itself as the first AI research company in the Philippines, was also present, as well as Audrey Pe, who founded the Women in Tech, or the YTech in the Philippines, to inspire the youth to identify role models in the field of technology. And lastly, there was also Amanda Dominguez of Consensus, who was involved in the participation in the Philippines in Hong Kong Rise, and she has consulted for a number of varied private and public projects in the Philippines related to startups. After the 2019 Web Summit in Lisbon, a proposal was sent to the 3 different government agencies to become part of Web Summit 2020. Of course, we all know what happened in 2020. There was the pandemic. The physical show did not push through as scheduled. However, because the organizers were innovators themselves, naturally they had to adapt and proceed with a digital event that was held last December 2020. And fortunately, the Philippines was still very much interested to support our startups in spite of the limitations of a purely digital event. The DTI in particular, through its Scale Up and Market Acceleration Program, a component of Startup Filipinos, was able to enroll for the Web Summit 2020 20 startup companies from the Philippines with about 77 representatives who were given support to access this event. It was the first time ever that the DTI organized a country participation for a digital event, specifically for international startups. And the event gathered about 104,000 attendees, which can probably be confirmed by the next speaker who will be coming in from the Web Summit. And about 45% of these participants were women coming from 168 countries. From the Philippines, there are about 20 companies, and I would just name some of the companies who were able to do some specific activities during the event. Olivia, for example, is a fintech company which was selected to pitch during an elevator round. And then AutoServed is an autotech startup company which was invited as a resource speaker on resharing mobility during one of the roundtable discussions. CU Doc, a medtech startup, also spoke during the roundtable discussion on fundraising startups for Series A practitioners. And although meetings and interactions were quite limited compared to the physical meetups, results submitted by these 20 companies to the organizers were quite encouraging. In fact, without naming names and relating them to specific investors, we got initial information that one of the startups who participated from the Philippines during Web Summit 2020 was able to probably seal in investments of at least $2.5 million from venture capitalists. And another company also informed us that they're currently in touch with some of their networks and are in the process of probably incubating in East Asia. So this strategy of helping build Philippine startups with not only Portuguese counterparts but global players from the startup spectrum continues to be a priority of the Philippine Embassy in Lisbon, and we hope we can continue finding avenues for them to scale up and develop their projects through the Web Summit or some other opportunities that present themselves from the Portuguese business community, including new technological innovation and probably new sources of knowledge. Just like Magellan seeking opportunities for spices some 500 years ago, we continue seeking opportunities that may help scale up some of our Philippine startups this side of Magellan's world. So that ends my presentation. I'll be glad to answer some questions later on in the discussion. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Thank you very much. So as you mentioned in your speech, there is someone from Web Summit who will be speaking right after you. So I would like to now introduce our next speaker. He is the head of, Ricardo Lima is our next speaker, and he is the head of startups of Web Summit and the startups team lead in Lisbon. He is responsible for the management of the Lisbon startups team and for the selection of startups that will participate at Web Summit's events. He is deeply immersed in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Portugal and globally with a great understanding of industry trends. Ricardo studied computer science and also had a stint at aeronautical sciences. And he worked with ISEC, a student-run organization, moving from the head of the office to be the national coordinator of internships. He joined Web Summit as startup coordinator before being promoted to startups team lead in Lisbon. Let us all welcome Ricardo Lima. You are now our next speaker to talk about startups in the Web Summit, the annual technology conference in Lisbon and largest tech event in the world. Ricardo.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for that great introduction. I think you presented me better than I would myself. So thank you for that. And also thank you to to the Philippine embassy here in Portugal for the invitation, and to the Ateneo University for organizing this event. As an event organizer, I know that it's really, really hard, especially during the current circumstances, to organize such an event. So congratulations on a very, very good event so far. Let me share my screen. I believe you can see the presentation. I'm Ricardo. I'm head of startups here at Web Summit. I'm based in the wonderful city of Lisbon. Unfortunately, I was never in the Philippines, but it's actually in my wish list. So hopefully I can meet you all in person whenever possible. My goal today would be to give you a little flavor of what Web Summit is all about as an event and as a company. And then talk a little bit about startups and how they get involved in our events and what type of opportunities they are able to pursue if they join our event. So basically, and as Mr. Falan mentioned, we are a company that organizes events globally. So Web Summit is probably one of the most famous one that we do organize. It's organized every year in Lisbon, or it was organized every year in Lisbon before the pandemic, but we also organize different events across the world. Rise in Hong Kong, mentioned by Mr. Fulan, is one of them. And then we also organize Collision in Toronto. But Web Summit also gives name to the company, is our flagship event. We are a team of around 250 people, mainly based in Dublin, Lisbon, and Toronto. And since a couple of years back, we've also started having people based remotely. So for the people listening to this presentation, if you're interested in joining the team, we're always hiring good people. Our mission is quite simple. So our mission is to bring together the people and companies redefining the global tech industry. And then through the activities that we organize during the event, provide them with the opportunity to establish meaningful connections between one another. As we know, I mean, at the end of the day, we are in an event joining from a lot of different parts of the world. Technology is touching pretty much every single industry right now, and not only every single industry, but also the way we live and we communicate with one another. So at the end of the day, that's our mission, is to, through our events, whether those are physical or virtual, we want to provide people with opportunities to establish meaningful connections that can help them achieve whatever goals they set up to achieve. We organized our first conference in 2010 in Dublin. And to that event, 400 people came. I believe that 400 people is much lesser number than the people actually participating in this event. So, and that was 11 years ago. Last year, we organized virtual events for more than 160,000 people. And the year before that, in 2019, so the last year that we organized a physical event, we had more than 100,000 people present in the three events that we organized. Focusing on Web Summit that is organized in Lisbon, as I was mentioning in 2019, these are numbers for the physical edition of the event. We had 70,000 people, more than 100,800 startups, people coming from more than 160 countries, which is something that we are very, very proud of. And at the same time is one of the things that we strive for as a team, is to try and provide as many different people the opportunity to attend the event. Mr. Polan mentioned that in 2019 Web Summit, we had the participation of women of more than 46%. So half of the event of participants are actually female. As we all know, the tech industry is quite dominated by males. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to diversify the pool of people participating in the event, because we deeply believe that diversity increases the richness of the outcomes of the different connections that are established in Web Summit. We also had more than 1,200 speakers and more than 2,000 journalists presenting. But obviously that was in a world without COVID. In 2020, with the beginning of the pandemic, we made the very difficult decision to postpone the physical edition of our events and organize them online. So for that, we focus all of our efforts into trying to the best of our ability, still pursue our mission in a virtual world. So how can we actually provide people with the opportunity to establish meaningful connections from every country on Earth? And we were lucky enough to move really, really fast and build our own platform and our own software platform to organize an online event. And we actually were able to grow the number of people participating. So from 70,000 people, we moved to 100,000 people participating in the event, coming from more than 150 countries, more than 2,000 journalists. We increased the number of startups participating. So from 1,800 to 2,500 startups that participated. And those 2,500 startups came again from more than 100 countries, which as the head of the team that deals with startups is something that makes me very, very proud, and it's something that continues to guide our job. For the ones that attended Web Summit, potentially have seen some of these people speak at our events. These are just some of the names that we were lucky enough to welcome in different editions of our events in the past, from the head of the World Health Organization to the co-founder of Medium, to the president of Microsoft, to Jane Goodall, or to Ed Catmull from Pixar. Margaret Vestager from the European Commission, Joseph Tsai from Alibaba, or Mike Krieger, the co-founder of Instagram. So this is just to show a little bit of the different industry experts that we're able to engage with and have at our events. Some of the companies that come every year to our events represent, I guess, the biggest technology companies in the world, from the likes of Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Samsung, to also some of the biggest car manufacturers in the world, like BMW or Mercedes, or some of the biggest consulting companies in the world, like Accenture, KPMG, or McKinsey, or if the biggest e-commerce company in the world, Amazon. In terms of journalists, again, we're able to bring representatives from some of the biggest publications in the world, like the Financial Times, Nikkei, Associated Press, Politico, BuzzFeed, Reuters, and so on, forth. And then another kind of flavor to the event, obviously, is the fact that we are able to not only have some of the biggest companies in the world, but we're also able to engage with some of the biggest startups in the world and some of the most promising startups in the world. Mr. Forlan named a couple of names that we all are very familiar with now, like Uber, Airbnb, or Dropbox, or Slack, or WeWork. Those companies all were engaged with Web Summit at the beginning of their journeys. And we are happy to say that we had a very, very small part in their road to growth, because they were able to engage with people, companies, and connections that help them in their journey. One of the most important things for startups to grow, obviously, is investment. So some of the world's leading investors actually attend our conferences. Investors like Y Combinator, Sequoia Partners, Goldman Sachs, Axel Partners, 500 Startups. Essentially, and I'll speak a little bit about that in a second. But one of the main things that we aim to do at the event for startups is provide them with opportunities to connect with investors that are able to then fuel their growth. So I was very, very happy when, and I was not aware of that success story. I was very happy when Mr. Falan mentioned that a Filipino startup came to Web Summit Online and was able to start the conversation that is now potentially representing a $2.5 million investment in their business. One of the things that I think makes Web Summit special, especially in a world in which events are happening every single day in every single corner of the world, and one of the things that I believe has made us grow as fast as we were lucky enough to grow in the last couple of years, is the fact that we, at the event, we have startups, speakers, and media that are interested in many different industries. So we are not focusing on a single industry. So at Web Summit, whether you are working in robotics or whether you're working in fashion, whether you're working in food manufacturing, whether you're working in sports, politics, or environment, you'll find people to engage with, people working in the same industries that you are, but also people working in completely different industries. One of the main things that I usually tell startups when I speak to them when they're wanting to attend Web Summit is the fact that a conversation with someone working in a completely different industry might give you insights into your own industry, into the way that you operate, into the way that you do things that can actually help you grow faster or increase your profits or whatever your goals are. So some of the topics that you can find at Web Summit range from education to finance to obviously investment, leadership, software development, smart cities, politics and government, PR and communication. So all of these topics are topics that you will be able to engage with if you attend Web Summit. But talking specifically about startups, as I was mentioning before, I'm lucky enough to be leading a team whose job is to make sure that we have the most promising startups in the world attending our events from whatever country they are coming from. Because again, we do believe that the richness that a startup or someone coming to Web Summit can find at the event and the connections that they're able to create at the event are deeply beneficial, whatever their industry is, whatever their country is, or whatever their growth stage is. So what the team and I do is we engage and we have interviews with the startups that want to attend Web Summit to make sure that one, the startup is a good fit for the event, and two, that the startup is actually able to achieve whatever goals they set up to achieve at the event. So they go through this selection process, and then we invite the startups that we consider to be the most promising ones, the most exciting ones from an innovation perspective, from a technology perspective, or even from a team perspective, and then work closely with them to provide them with the opportunities that they're seeking. So for that, we divide the startups into three different growth categories. So alpha, beta, and growth. Alpha meaning the early stage companies who are attending Web Summit for most times for the first time, and they're looking for market or product validation. And again, to start developing the connections that can help them launch and scale their startup. Betas would be companies that are a little bit more mature. Typically, they have already some investment. But ultimately, we, through the interview process and through analyzing the information that we're able to collect on each startup, we then invite to the beta program startups that are, again, a little bit more mature in terms of development, traction, and also the disruption to the market. And then we have the growth program, which is for companies that are already have received already over $3 million in investment, and also have a product in the market that is scaling very, very fast. Maybe they already have international presence, they have a growing team, and they're looking to, again, add fuel to their growth by attending the event. Typically, when you think about a startup, you can bucket their goals as a company and as a team in a set of different different objectives. And typically those objectives range from, again, market validation to product validation or feedback for the, for the most recent startups, obviously to investor exposure or media exposure. They also are looking to network with people from their own industries and also from people from different industries. They're looking for mentorship, so connecting with people or companies that can provide them insights into their growth strategy. A couple of examples of these mentorships are the fact that we try to connect startups with, and I didn't mention that we also engage a lot with country delegations. Like Mr. Falan was mentioning, we were lucky enough to welcome a Filipino delegation to Web Summit 2019 and then to 2020. But like the Philippines, we have a lot of different countries coming to the event. And in most cases, some of the goals of the startups, and connected to some of the questions that were asked by the audience before, is how can I actually grow internationally? So how can I position myself or my company in a way that I'm able to tackle different markets? So coming to an event like Web Summit is actually a great opportunity to do that, because you're able to connect directly and in person with people that are able to help you understand their markets and provide you with connections in different markets to then, again, fuel your growth. But also, I think one of the main and the most important goal of any startup really is for the customer acquisition, right? So it's not only about investment, but it's mostly about acquiring new customers. And through an event that gathers 70,000 people in their physical event or 100,000 people in the online event, there's plenty of opportunity for startups to do just start to connect with potential customers and to establish strategic partnerships. So if a startup is interested in attending our event, and once they go through the selection process, as the 20 startups that we had at 2020 coming from the Philippines in Web Summit, they are then provided with the opportunity to register in what we call the startup programs according to their growth stage. And what is included in the growth program? So first and foremost, each team is able to bring up to 3 people to the event, which gives them access to the entirety of the event. So access to all the different stages that I was mentioning before in terms of different industries. They also are able to exhibit in a fully customized booth for one of the days of the event. So we do take care of everything in terms of logistics of their booth so that they don't have to worry about anything. Because one of our main goals as a startups team and as a startup event is to make it as easy as possible for startups to participate in the event. And me having worked in different startups across my professional career so far, one of the things when thinking about attending an event is obviously the logistics of how are we able to actually create our booth and how are we able to position ourselves in the event. So that's the main goal of the program itself, and also of the fact that we take care of the logistics of their booth. Then we have what we call the investor to startup platform, in which our main goal is to connect as many relevant startups to as many relevant investors as we possibly can during the event. So for that, we create a platform in which the startups fill their information, and the investors are then invited to select the ones that they think are the most fit their investment thesis. And at the same time, our team is also working in the background to suggest investors to startups and startups to investors. We also give the opportunity to startups of becoming speakers at the event through the pitch competition. We've had a great success, or we've seen great successes coming from pitch in terms of the startups that participated and won the event, and then were able to raise money even from the juries of the competition. So usually the juries of the competition are some of the investors attending the event. But we do have other opportunities for startups to actually be able to tell the world and tell our audience what they're building through different stages. We also try to the best of our ability to position the companies in the platforms that we're developing, whether those are the web app or the mobile app. So one of the key things about our event is that we do use technology to increase the chances of startups connecting with their most relevant audience through different means like algorithms or even human curation. So we're always working in the background to make sure that people are able to find one another. And for that, every startup attending the event has a profile through which people that are looking for companies like their startup are able to see what they're all about, see their presentation, and then connect with them. We also organize mentor hours in which a group of startups sharing some either same goals or same challenges are able to connect with one another through 1 hour discussions that we then obviously invite them to take further. And we also, as I was saying, work very, very closely with every startup to make sure that they prepare accordingly to the event, because one of the main things that dictate the success of a startup attending an event like Web Summit is actually the preparation. So knowing their audience, knowing their goals, and understanding how are they able to then use and capitalize on the opportunities that they're provided with to achieve their goals. So that's what I wanted to share with all of you. Hopefully for the ones that were part of Web Summit in the past, I was able to spark a little or some memories, some good memories. And for the ones that have never attended Web Summit, I was able to clarify some of the questions that you might have, but I'm also very, very happy to answer any questions that you might have about the event. The event will happen this year in Lisbon, hopefully from November 1st to November 4th. My contact is ricardo.lima@websummit.com. So if I'm not able to answer any question during the Q&A part, please do send me an email and I'll be happy to answer the questions. So thank you so much. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Are you saying you're planning a face-to-face in November already? That's one of the questions actually posted online.
Yes, we are working very, very closely with the Portuguese authorities. Obviously, we are abiding to all the rules, but the plan is to organize an in-person event in Lisbon from November 1st to November 4th.
Have you ever watched the Korean drama Startups?
I have watched. I'm still in.
Have you seen the Korean drama series Startups? No. Oh well. Some people are raising.
I've seen the first season, and I was made aware that they mentioned Rise as the premier tech event I think in season 3. So that was obviously a big surprise to the team and a very pleasant surprise.
Okay, that was really not a serious question, but here's the serious one for both of you. It's about selection. I wonder, how did you select the Philippine participants? That question is for Froilan. And then tied to that question goes to Ricardo. Do you remember selecting those teams? So from your side of the selection process, this is a bit on the history of how we participated, but it's also targeted at people who may be interested. So target those audiences and let us know what they need to do to get selected. Let's start with Froilan.
Okay, I was actually not directly involved in the selection process. It was our colleagues from the Department of Trade and Industry, specifically the Export Marketing Group, in partnership with our colleagues from the Department of Information and Communications Technology and the Department of Science and Technology, who made the selection both for the RISE Hong Kong 2019 participants and the 2020 Web Summit participants. If I remember correctly, there were at least 4 key criteria which they use in selecting the participants or those who would qualify for subsidy from the Philippine government. Number 1 would be the potential for innovation. Number 2 would be scalability, if they'll be able to generate an opportunity to grow their project by becoming part of this international event. The other one is more qualitative, it's motivation. If they're able to convince the panel during their presentations that they'll be worthy of that slot. And then the profile, of course. Normally, Philippine startups are involved in financial technology related activities, but there's also an interest in a number of technological projects involving construction and civic work. So, but normally it's the financial tech related startups that have been getting the slots for these international participation. But hopefully we'll be able to get some more participants from the other fields, because there are other gaps that need to be filled up by these emerging startups and projects.
So how does that go? If the Philippines selects a group of people, then Ricardo's team, will you have to select them again? How does that work?
Okay, so maybe I can, before I pass it over to Ricardo, what we do in the home office in the Philippines is that they deal with a number of incubators, get recommendations from key opinion leaders from the startup ecosystem, and then once they narrow it down, that's not the end of it, because as what Ricardo mentioned, if we submit 20 startups to them, it does not automatically mean that they will be allowed to participate in the Web Summit. They would still have to clear through some of the processes of the Web Summit for them to be able to make it through. In fact, that's what happened for the Web Summit 2020 digital participation. We thought it was going to be relatively easy because it was happening online, but Ricardo and his team gave a lot of challenge to our startups.
I wouldn't say challenges. What we do is make sure that the right startups are present at the event under the startup program. So one thing that I do need to make clear is that everyone is able to participate in Web Summit. So as long as you have an interest in technology, you're able to participate in Web Summit. Obviously, through you have to register and you have to purchase your ticket. So we have what we call the general attendee. So any person really can go to the website, buy a ticket, go to website, then go to the event. But then the startup program, so the program that I was mentioning in terms of like organizing meetings with investors, organizing meetings with partners and mentors and everything, that is that's why we have a selection process. And that's another reason why I think Web Summit was able to grow as fast as we did, is we do take a lot of effort throughout the year to make sure that the right startups are at the event, because at the end of the day, startups are at the core of Web Summit. So startups are obviously able to then attract the interest of investors, media, countries, even countries that want to engage with startups, or big companies that want to engage with startups. So what we do is we interview each and every one of the startups that are willing to participate in the startup program. And we ask them a couple of questions about their team, about the product, about the technology that they're using. And then we clarify everything that they're able to achieve at the event. And then once we have that, the startup actually makes an informed decision whether they want to come to the event or not, because at the end of the day, a startup has very limited resources, obviously. And they're very small companies, they have very limited money, very limited energy, very limited time. So they're building very, very fast and they want to grow very fast. So our job is to make sure that those resources are applied correctly in the context of the event. We are industry agnostic, so we don't look at the industries. We've had startups coming from every single industry. We are country agnostic, so we don't look at countries. We had startups coming from every single country, or almost every single country on earth. So our job with the challenges that we pose them in the selection process is to make sure that they are a good fit for what we believe to be the trends in terms of technology, and also that they're able to achieve the goals that they are setting to achieve at the event. And replying to your question, I don't necessarily remember all of the startups, because just to give you context, we engage for an event like Web Summit, in which 2,000 startups participate. We usually engage with more than 15,000 startups. So that's a lot of interviews, a lot of startups, and unfortunately, I'm not getting younger, so my memory usually fails me.
I do appreciate that you mentioned gender and that you have, diversity as one of the lenses in which you think things through. Is there affirmative action in the kinds of policies that you put? For example, are there special treatment for third world countries? Is the event monopolized by Europeans or Americans or Koreans? Is there space for Southeast Asians? Or in the 30 topics that you mentioned in one of your slides, are there spots where the Philippines could probably have a better, comparative advantage? Or, you mentioned Jane Goodall. There's the environment. Maybe if we went for coral reefs and things that are close to our environment that other places don't have, is there some niche that the Philippines can occupy?
Thank you for that question. Yes, one of our main And that's a tough question.
I know.
But one of our main goals as an event organizer, as a mega event organizer, one of the biggest events in the world, is to actually democratize. I know that this word is being used a lot, but it's democratize the access to our events. So that's why from the very start of the event, we set up the goal of the gender balance. So we looked at the technology industry and we saw that it's very imbalanced, right? So it's very dominated by specific type of person. So we set up to create different initiatives that would allow us to bring as many different people as possible. So one of the programs that we have is called Women in Tech, in which women can actually purchase tickets at a very, very discounted rate than we have. We have a program called the Aspire program, in which we work with the Portuguese government to bring students to our events, because we also understand that education is a crucial aspect to increase the diversity in the tech industry. And we work, so last year, for instance, we launched an initiative in which startups coming from countries not in Europe or North America would have a discount in the startup program fee. Because again, we try to make it as easy as possible for startups to participate, but we also understand that a startup coming from the United States or coming from Europe obviously has, in theory, more resources, and it's easier for them to attend than it is for someone in the Philippines or for someone in countries in Southeast Asia or countries in Africa. So we do have programs to help startups attend the event, and then we also try to work very, very closely with governments, so with different governments that are then able to work with us closely in identifying potential startups, and then having the governments also working with us to make sure that they also help the startups in this specific case, something that the Philippines did, which was to help Filipino startups coming to the event. And in terms of content and speakers, we do have a team of speakers that are always working and finding people that are then able to talk about the different subjects and matters that we identify as part of it. So absolutely, there are opportunities for everyone to be involved in Marseille.
Oh, freelance race. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just to add and give credit to Ricardo and his team, and to Clementine, who's also a colleague of Ricardo's at the Web Summit. In 2019 and even before that, the Web Summit actually gave the Philippine Embassy in Lisbon and some of our officers access to the event. So that was a stepping stone, because we were able to actually evaluate the project and provide our feedback to our colleagues back home in the Philippines. So I think that initial entry into the Web Summit, which was given to us by an easy pass by Web Summit in 2019, provided the opportunity to bring in the eventual Philippine participants in the Web Summit.
Froilan, there's someone who wants to ask you a question. This might bring memories. Your former teacher, Dr. Noel Rodriguez, will ask a question, but it's addressed to both of you, linking entrepreneurship. This will be our parting shot for this theme. But, Web Summit seems like something so big. How do we relate it to the real life of people watching? Noel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nikki. I think the pride of every history teacher is when you're a student of more than 30 years ago.
No, more than 20 years ago.
More than 20 years ago.
26 to be exact.
Not only speaks in the conference that you help organize, but actually reference your classes. So your ending line of Magellan is touches my heart. And of course, Magellan looking for spices, but as well as in the other side is Cebu being a main trading port at that time. So thank you, Froilan, for
You're most welcome. I learned a lot from you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you. Okay, a question here is touches for both of you, Mr. Lima and Mr. Froilan. It's a private question with regards to relating startups actually with personal lives, and this is a businesswoman, Pamela Tan, who asked, how can startup possibly help home-based businesses in entering the export world? Thank you.
It's a little
Do you
tough to
want to
answer that
start?
question, but you know, Dr. Rodriguez, some of the startups that eventually grow into the unicorns that they are started in the backyards or even in the apartments of their creators. If I'm not mistaken, Airbnb actually was a concept that was created when some group of friends, about three of them, were talking about the possibility of traveling overseas, but they could not find access to international accommodation given their meager resources. So I think um, how startups can help eventually those who are planning um, to develop their enterprises is um, we would basically just encourage them to be creative and to link up with possible networks, whether it be through their local ecosystems or even through international ecosystems. There's also the government and the academe who have startup ecosystem projects, which they can link up with. They don't have to be physically involved in startup sites or incubation sites. They can just basically network through online platforms or electronically. And from there, I think they can discover possible mentors, possible funders, possible angel investors who can help bring their enterprises in a scaled up opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. You know, it really represents, I think, the main topic and theme of the conference, which is contacts and continuities. You know, thank you.
And maybe similar to what the Sharjah Affair of Indonesia mentioned a while ago, I think there's a continuity when it comes to accessing new technologies and new knowledge, which was started 500 years ago by Magellan. He brought in a lot of technology, new technology that is coming in from the West to the Philippines when he traveled all the way to the Philippines. And this time around, it's very interesting that we're seeing that the new knowledge is not just coming from one side, but it's coming from both sides. So I think that's the power of online technology. We're able to generate information, new knowledge, and new technologies just by linking up and being connected.
Thank you. Ricardo, parting shots before we close.
I mean, it's about what Mr. Falan was saying. I think technology has made it incredibly easy for people to connect wherever they are, to share what they're doing. So someone building even a home business in Manila is able to find customers in Portugal through technology. And there are plenty of different startup companies that have products specifically catered to small business, even to small manufacturing business, that then help them connect with potential customers or potential investors, and also having the opportunity to attend events like this, in which they're able to listen to different experiences and different people, will for sure make them start to think about different ways that they can actually bring their business to the next level. So it's all about contacts and then continuing those contacts and following up on contacts that they achieve.
Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we have to close this discussion because we have a third one to go. Thank you very much to our speakers. Now,
Thank
before
you.
I'm about to move to our next panel. We've already had gustatory delights for the first panel, and we've got the Web Summit and Technology. Our third theme now will bring us to the world of apparel, infrastructure, and architecture. This is about Philippine investment in Portugal and Portuguese investment in the Philippines. Let me introduce the first speaker for this third discussion theme. Our third speaker is the CEO and President of NST Apparel. This is Lawrence de los Santos, Director of NST Apparel, who after graduating in the University of Michigan in 1990, immediately joined his father in building their apparel business to get to where it is now. NST in the Philippines was founded as a knitting company in 1968 and evolved into a garment manufacturing for an export market later on. It started to export garments to Europe in 1978 and entered the US market in 1993. NST is presently engaged in fabric development, design, and production, and serves as a sourcing partner for different international brands and has production facilities in both Asia and Europe. Lawrence de los Santos, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Nikki. for that introduction. First of all, let me say thank you to all the organizers for inviting us to be part of this, especially, of course, to our ambassador, Ambassador Cookie. I hope to be able to see you in the next couple of weeks. Um, Let me first start my presentation with three questions. Actually, one of the questions was already asked in the first part tonight. First part tonight, my time, is the first is, how is the Philippines future-proofing our exports? And then my second question is, hopefully for my presentation answer this, why has a Philippine company made investments in Portugal where normally it would be the other way around? And then third and lastly, the question is, why Portugal? So maybe Nikki, you could go and show the first video. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Michelle will show the video. Michelle, is the audio on?
Thank you for that video. I'd like to first describe the industry that we are in, the garment manufacturing industry. As I guess most of all of you know, the garment industry is, I would imagine, the most competitive industry to be in globally, because the garment industry, is how to say this, the competition in this industry is so fierce that you have companies or countries manufacturing in countries like Ethiopia, Bangladesh, even in the different ASEAN countries have big manufacturing capabilities like Vietnam, Cambodia, India. So for us in the Philippines, it's the same thing. We are competing in this whole huge industry that is so competitive, and the range of competition is again so big as well. Whether it's be Portugal, because it's competing with Italy or certain Eastern European countries, this industry is very difficult. Which brings me now to the point of, why have we, a Philippine company, made investments into Portugal? This is a question that has often been asked of me. And the answer actually is because my stubbornness to want to survive in this industry, especially in the Philippines. NST was founded in the Philippines by my father almost 50 years ago. We started garment exporting from about 40 years ago. Presently in the Philippines, we still have approximately 4,000 employees manufacturing in the Philippines. Uh, from as early as about 10 years ago, I saw the writing on the wall. What am I saying? There is so much competition globally in this industry that we had to find ways to sustain the business in the Philippines for the next generation. I'm already second generation, and I want my third generation to continue the business. Of course, that's every father's dream. But it's not easy to maintain a business, especially with global competition, with so many countries fighting for that piece of the pie. So from 10 years ago, we saw the writing on the wall. There was just so much competition that we had to find a niche in the market, and that niche had to be higher end luxury products. That's the only way we can be competitive and relevant for the next 10, 20, or even 30 years. But we were a Filipino was to make investment and was to make an investment in another country with a, let's say, a higher profile than the Philippines. So I searched hard and long, visited many different countries, and finally landed in Portugal. I landed in Portugal 2011, 2012, was looking at the country, looking at the advantages of the country, and finally made the decision in 2013 to make the investments. So right now, NST Portugal employs approximately 300 people. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And presently, we are catering to the luxury market and also the very high-end market for both the US and the EU market. So you can see here the list of customers that we have. Of course, companies like Givenchy or Balenciaga, these would be French brands that would not produce in the Philippines. However, we also produce for companies, let's say on your right, shared customers. These would be the list of customers that we are sharing between Portugal and the Philippines. How did we get this customer base to come to the Philippines? Is because this customer base was comfortable to produce first in Portugal, and maybe because of price reasons, they wanted something to be a little cheaper than Portugal. Then they were comfortable to start with Portugal, and eventually the work would go to the Philippines. So this investment for us from the Philippines into Portugal has really helped make the company more sustainable going forward by allowing us to market NST not only as a Filipino company, but as a global company catering to the luxury and the high-end market, and being able to produce not only in Portugal, but also Portugal and the Philippines. So this strategy has helped us, ensure that at least for the next few more years, that we would be able to find that niche in the market that helps us to become more sustainable going to the future. So next slide, please. So these are pictures of products that we have been producing in Portugal. As you can see, even next slide, please. We produce a very big range of products, unlike the traditional garment factory. A traditional garment factory would produce 1 or 2 products at most. We in NST Portugal would produce the whole range of products, be it menswear, be it women's wear, be it outerwear, be it swimwear, be it a ski jacket or a tailored suit. We would be producing the whole range of products because it helps us to become a fashion company, a fashion factory catering to all the brands so that we can be a one-stop shop. That is the same philosophy that we have been using in the Philippines. In the Philippines, we are catering to mainly the American market, but also the philosophy is for us to be a one-stop shop for our different customers so that they don't have to shop elsewhere for different product types. They can just buy everything from us. And this has been, again, the same strategy that we have employed for NST Portugal, and which has served us well through the pandemic. Through the pandemic, you can see that people would not be wearing the product that you see on the screen presently. People have been wearing things that are more relaxed, more t-shirts, more sweatshirts. And again, those products are also part of our capability. So it's able to stabilize the business for us, both in Portugal and in the Philippines. Next slide, please. Again, more products. This would be now tailored products for both, again, men's and women's. And this has been, again, the strategy that we have for more success. So again, to answer the questions I had a while ago, I'll answer first the third question. Why Portugal? Portugal is in a perfect position geographically to cater to Western Europe, where this market is located. The most of the luxury brands that you see here are located in Western Europe. Second is Portugal has great reputation pertaining to its workforce, pertaining to quality product, pertaining to even the supply chain and the availability of fabrics and the whole supply chain to be, for it to be available in the country. And why did we go into Portugal other than, the perfect position, good reputation, and excellent workforce? It's really having the same values as we have in the Philippines, especially from a common faith, a common religion in Christianity, which is extremely important. So these are the key reasons why we decided to put up shop basically in Portugal about 7-8 years ago. And up to today, we have not regretted it. We continue to hope that the operations in Portugal continue to grow and would continue to help make the Philippine operations also sustainable for the next 10-20 years. Now, for the first question, how is the Philippines future-proofing our exports? This is now related to why did we go into Portugal? I mean, it's really just seeing that the Philippines, to compete on price alone, it is not possible. Our costs in the Philippines are much higher than our neighbors. You can always find a cheaper country out there. And therefore, any Filipino company similar to us, we need to think more long-term, and we need to think out of the box. How do we find a solution? Again, we cannot compete on price, and therefore the only way for us to be sustainable is finding that niche market and being excellent in producing great product and providing the great service that the market currently needs and demands from any supplier. And I would suggest, again, a tie-up like this between Portugal and Philippines has been a great success for us, and hopefully for the people who are viewing this presentation, this can serve as an inspiration for more companies to follow in the difficult path that we have gone through. But so far so good. We are happy, and we look forward to greater things between, again, Portugal and the Philippines. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I thought the delicious panel was only the first panel, but I didn't realize I was drooling while looking at the photos presented in your presentation. Okay, I'm now going to call our next, introduce our next speaker. But while we are setting up the slides for the next speaker, I'd like to remind everybody that you can type questions from the YouTube view. Now, let me introduce our next speaker. Enrique Santos has over 26 years experience in civil construction project management, not only in Portugal, but also in other countries such as Brazil, Spain, Taiwan, Qatar, and now in the Philippines. He joined the Steconfer in 2015 as project manager in several railway projects. And in 2018, he accepted the challenge to set up the Steconfer branch in the Philippines to make it one of the major railway players in the rail industry of the country. and he is now branch director and VP of Steconfair Philippines Corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Enrique Santos. He will talk about Portuguese infrastructure project partnerships in the Philippines, the MRT-7 light rail project in Metro Manila. You have the floor now.
Thank you, Nikki, for your introduction. I would like to share my PowerPoint. Okay, if it's possible. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your location. As Nikki said, my name is Enrique Santos, and I'm currently the branch manager of Steconfair Field in Philippines. First of all, let me say thank you for on behalf of Steconfair for the opportunity to participate on this event and share a little bit of our experience in this huge country. I will focus my short presentation in some aspects of Steconfair steps to set up its activities in Philippines and what we are doing here. So let me start introducing Steconfair. Steconfair is a Portuguese-based company with know-how, expertise, and experience in track works, overhead power lines, and signaling, which led us to be present in a global railway market around the world. Steconfair has a vast portfolio of railway track works and systems in 4 continents now, and we are actually in Southern North America, Africa, Asia, and Europe. Currently, we are operating, we have permanent establishments in Philippines, Canada, Peru, and Sweden, with ongoing projects in several other European countries like Norway and the UK. And as you may see on this map, that unfortunately it's not yet updated with these new markets. We are present, as I mentioned previously. So you may ask, why is Steconfair in Philippines? Well, after several months of negotiations, After several months of negotiations, Steconfair formalized in 2018 with Hyundai Rotem Company from Korea a contract for assembling and installation of the track works on the MRT-7 project in Manila. The MRT-7 is a railway project for the DOTR, the Department of Transportation of the Filipino government, with a total length of 23 kilometers, double track, 14 stations, and 1 depot facility to trains with more than 10-kilometer track lengths. The project it's being built along highways and roads, mostly in concrete elevated sections, to optimize the space and minimize the impact on the traffic. It's a project under the Build program ongoing from Filipino government to improve country's infrastructures and create productive capacity of the economy, create new jobs, increase incomes, and strengthen the investment. And this was the main reason for Steconfair doing business in Philippines. And so that opened a new market on our global activity. The next steps after the project awarding was to establish Steconfair as a legal authorized company to do business in Philippines. It was not an easy way, being in a new market with its own rules and laws. And to do this fundamental step, Steconfair needs to get the support of a local legal office with experience and knowledge in Filipino laws. It was with this first partnership that we still have today that Steconfair was able to set up Steconfair Field in less than 5 months with all required mandatory license to operate in Philippines, such as the SEC registration for Secretariat Exchange Commission, the BIR registration for Bureau of Internal Revenue, pickup license or registration from Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board, mayor's permits, and others. As information also for the companies that intends to establish offices in the Philippines. For a foreigner company like Steconfair to establish himself in Philippines, At the time, it was mandatory by law that at least 60% of its capital should be local, which means that Steconfair had to find local partnerships to comply with these requirements, which we did without no difficulties. As in all other geographies, and Philippines, it's not different from the other countries. To set up a new company in Philippines has its own challenges and growing pains. So Steconfair had to adapt himself to the new business market, considering some local factors such as the working methodologies that had to be adjusted, having been adapted to the local laws, regulations, to create a new business culture. The cultural differences also had to be assimilated, respected, and adjusted in the social and corporate relations. For example, to comply with the labor conditions of our working force according to local law. New resources and supply chains had to be built through local trust in new corporate relations with suppliers and partners and clients. And also the COVID impact that we are all experiencing, which created new challenges in companies' performance with its all limitations and restrictions, not only imposed by the local government, but also in a global way that impacted the way we work, travel, have meetings, deal with business, and so on. Once we set up Steconfair himself in the Philippines, we realized about the potential of new works under the Build Government program that I mentioned before. And so that we set up some partnerships with local companies for the upcoming rail projects, in which some of them we expect to be successful in a short time. Also, Steconfair looked for the local market and understood the potential and skills that Filipino workers have that could leverage to our actual project and hopefully to projects that may come. So it was clear that our strategy, it would have to go through training employees and providing them with the skills in Steconfair's image and the way of working. And I must say that we are being successful with that. This bet made the need of expatriate workers less than expected, bringing a clear cost benefit to the company. Today, it's an acquired fact that we have the capacity in the Philippines to provide training to new collaborators, not only for the local market, but also and certainly for other markets that where Steconfair is operating. So and with this, I finish my presentation of Steconfair's actual activity. One of the few Portuguese companies doing business in Philippines, I believe. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. And so we will just have one final speaker before we move to the question and answer. So our third and final speaker for the whole event today is Sergio Pereira da Silva, founding and managing partner of architect Saraiva and Asociados. He is currently in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. And he was born in 1979 in Lisbon, Portugal, very young. Sergio Pereira da Silva graduated in architecture from Universidade Licenciada de Lisboa and obtained the LEED certification in 2013 and is currently a PhD student in the doctoral program in social sustainability and development at the Universidade Aberta de Lisboa. He had practiced as an architect in Portugal until 2011, having started his international career in Vietnam, then in Algeria, Hong Kong, and Macau, enrolling directly in projects related to urban planning, hotels and resorts, healthcare, retail, entertainment, and science parks. He finally moved back to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and later joined Saraiva and Asociados as founding and managing partner in Vietnam. Let us all welcome Sergio Pereira da Silva for his presentation, Portuguese Architecture and Urban Design Developers, Arthaland Projects in Cebu.
Thank you very much. Good morning or good afternoon. I would like also to extend my greetings to the Ambassador Cookie, that is very supportive with our company as well to invite us for this discussion. I'm going to share I'm going to share in this moment our presentation. I hope you can see. Basically, the challenge that we were invited was to discuss or to share with the potential Portuguese companies to come to Philippines, to share our experience, why we choose Philippines and what is the reason for us to do business in the Philippines. This is a very challenging subject since I'm in Asia already 11 years, based in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City, and the Philippines. I consider that is the most westernized country of Southeast Asia. That means when I come to the Philippines, I feel at home. And this is, I will not say that it is a lovely letter about Philippines and Philippine people, but is a very nice sharing, and also happy we are doing business in the Philippines. Well, we'll split the presentation in 3 parts. We're only going to introduce a little bit about ourselves, who is S plus I, or Saraiva and Associates. After, we're going to discuss about our internationalization, how we start as a very small office in Portugal to start to produce architecture with a stand of Portuguese way of living around the world, and what is our challenge in the Philippines, and how we deal with some difficulties, and in the end, the happiness to work with the Filipino company and with the Filipino professionals. Well, as Plaza Group, this year we made 25 years of existence, means we have 25 years of experience. Our pillar of our core is architecture and urban design. Of course, we also do some projects related to sustainability, interior design, and also global design. And in the total, the group has more than 150 professionals, and we are spread along the 11 countries and in the 4 continents. And we are very proud, I think, not only Portuguese, but also the Spanish, means we are the Iberian company that are featuring in a world architecture ranking in 100 top. That means we are very proud of ourselves to be in this ranking. It is not easy, not only to achieve it, but also to maintain. And we are the only Iberian company in the architectural field. Well, we are based in Lisbon, in Portugal, capital of Portugal. Also, we have office, as we mentioned, in 11 countries, also in Ho Chi Minh City, the most close to Manila, to the Philippines. And we have 2 main pillars that we daily use in our work. First, we have our creative hub in Lisbon. Our architecture is Portuguese, have the values of the South European architecture. The second one is we call collective intelligence. That means we try to understand, since we are international company and acting in the several countries, we have this collective intelligence to adapt, to be local or to design local with some global values. And this give us the resilience to work in broad countries as during these 25 years. Apart of this, daily, we have more 4 principles that we don't give up. And one of is our client. The collaboration and the commitment of the delivery with our client is essential and is very, very important for us. Also, we centralize the user in our projects as the most important to create the space. This is why we call the comfort of experience. The user is the end user of the space are our principal target. Of course, supporting and protecting the investment of our client. In another side, in the architecture is a holistic design. That means we need to engage with another stakeholders that can combine and create, I will not say perfect, but the most effective result in terms of project. and we call holistic process, where different disciplines from MEP, from structure, from different type of technologies of construction go together working with us to deliver the best, or the more suitable project for the client. By the end, but not the less important, is the BIM. S plus A is one of the companies in Portugal using BIM system to design the projects. That means it's an integrated system in terms of software that combine all specialties or all disciplines to create a better construction in the process of the construction. This trend is, this software is very trending in Asia, start to now to happen to come to Europe. And in this moment, we are very proud to be in avant-garde of this software. As I say, areas of expertise, our column, our pillar is architecture and urban design. And after we have several branches, I would say, in terms of supporting our architecture project, from intro design, Green Lab that we're talking about sustainability, or in terms of concept design, in terms of exhibitions, etc., or even S plus A Capital, that is a special department in our company that help the investor to get the better shows or the best option for his investment. Some iconic projects in Portugal. All Portuguese knows the headquarters of Polícia Judiciária or Judiciary Police was made by or designed by us. And every time that have some situations that are not very nice in our country, the televisions film or record always the facade of our project, and is a free advertisement for us. Or for example, we also have a special clinical department or medical department in our office in Portugal that design hospitals. We have designed the last one was Beatriz Angel Hospital, also in Portugal, in Lourdes, or this iconic education building that is the Park International School in Alfragide, also in Portugal, or in Kazakhstan, for example, the headquarters of Fort Bank in Nur Sultan, in the capital of Kazakhstan. Returning to more public buildings, we have Justice Camp of Lisbon, that is also in Lisbon, in Expo 98, or that is under construction, the biggest tower in Lisbon, with around 35 floors near Sete Rios in the city center of Lisbon. Well, internationalization, because our presentations is try to give some hope to the Portuguese companies that intend to come to the Philippines. What was our path? We established in 1996 in Portugal, and in 2004 we start to export service. Export service means we're starting to work from headquarters to projects overseas. In 2010, we have decided to move also to open an office in Algeria, in the north of Africa, and after that we start to open several offices. The latest ones was in Asia, and the last one was in Vietnam in 2019 in Ho Chi Minh City. Well, Ho Chi Minh City is the base of S plus A in Asia. From Ho Chi Minh City to because it's a new city in terms of, it's super vibrant, very well connected in terms of flights. From Ho Chi Minh City, we start to approach another markets. In instance, Manila, Philippines, Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia or Singapore. Means we are based in Ho Chi Minh with Vietnamese teams, very well connected with Portugal, very close. We speak every day. We work with our creative team in Lisbon, and we also produce in Vietnam, the projects also for these geographies. Why Philippines? This is the main question that was challenged by Ambassador Cookie. Why? What is the reason we choose Philippines? As Mr. Lawrence's presentation, we have several things in common that I never think about since I start to step in the Philippines. The first one is hospitability, or the welcome that we receive every time that we step in the Philippines. We feel at home. I could say that it is a country of smiles, a country that is very gentle for foreigners. That means I don't feel a foreigner in the Philippines. And this is very good to do business because we don't, the people are not hostile. We feel comfortable. It's very charmed to stay in the Philippines because we are always very welcome. The another thing that we have in very common is the strong family ties and the religions. As Portuguese and Philippines, we celebrate the same festivals. We have the same faith. And this gives us a very comfortable way to do business because even sometimes, of course, the Philippines doesn't speak Portuguese, but we have some contact points together. And this is help us not only doing business, but to feel comfortable working in the Philippines. Also is the respect. Personally, I feel always well respected in the Philippines. Not because I'm a foreigner, I will not be served, or I will not be, or the Philippines will not pay attention. No, I always be respected, and we always are very well received with a very courtesy manners that, for me, put the Philippines on the top of my favorite countries, and I'm at least 11 years in Asia. This another thing that for us choose the Philippines is the generosity and the helpfulness. That is also I think that is linked with the Christian values, the foundation of the Philippines. Love and caring is very important also, that we understand, and we understand that the Filipinos take care. They have these common values of the Portuguese. And when we talk about one of the major or very important value to do business with a partner is their strong work ethic. I'm very surprised, and I'm going to explain in the further slides. Also surprised we were about our client in the Philippines. But this strong ethic in the work for us is very important. They are professionals. The Filipino are very on time in the meetings. For example, even they have the soul of a Latino way, right? But in the end, they're extremely professionals. They know very well their scope. They are very fluent in English, and keep us very, very comfortable to do business. And for me, is one of the most important points when we choose a strategic partner or a strategic client to enter in a market, to this partner or client as a very strong ethic that combine and fit with our values as European or as a Portuguese. And this is Philippines for us. This is the reason we come to Philippines. This is the reason we start to discover Philippines. This is the reason I flew every week to Manila before the COVID-19, and is why we are so exciting, not only with the Filipino market, but with the Filipino people, with the Filipino values. The last chapter, what was the big challenge for us that we can share with the Portuguese companies that are interested to come to the Philippines? We had an enormous and great client that is Harteland. This client is led by Mr. Gonzalez, that is the chairman of, the president of the group. Artelan is one of the biggest players in the Philippines and share the same vision and the values of our company in terms of architecture, in terms of delivery, very high quality product to their buyers, based on the sustainability principles, based on the international standards. And for us, we feel completely very well, in a very well placed to work, since the client knows very well what they want. Then they understand very, very much our principle of architecture. And the challenge was to design a building with 35 floors in the city center of Cebu, near to Ayala complex. And we cannot design a tower, a simple tower in the middle of city, and don't have any impact on that. And was a big challenge because we understand what is the vision of the client and what we tried to create, because the challenge the client was to create a resort-like, since Cebu is a tropical island with the tropical weather, was to create a resort-like residential, and to understand that they are building in the city, and this building will have impact in the city. And we try to create some principle of Portuguese architecture in terms of relation between the exterior of the public space until to the interior space. That means we try to supersede the boundaries between the public and the private, and do all these, I would say, layers to be the most smooth as possible. This project started already 1 year ago, exactly 2 months before the big pandemic of COVID-19, means in the beginning of 2020, and was planned, for example, for our team based in Portugal and in Vietnam. Basically, was a triangle of working to be traveled weekly to Manila. Was not possible, and was very, very well managed by the client in a very professional manner, in the way that we basically talk every day with video conference to manage this project that was basically made online, I would say, with impossible visits face-to-face with the client, and was extraordinary, with a very extraordinary professionals in different areas, engineers from client side, architects from our client side. That means was a very, I would say in the end, a very easy way to work, because the client already is so professional that for us was quite, to say, was like the hand and the glove fit together. And in the end, we have this result last week. No, I would say, I'm sorry, we are Saturday. That means last Monday was the groundbreaking of this project, this iconic project in Cebu. We are very, very exciting. We are already in some newspapers talking about this new or this innovative design that will happen in Cebu based on the sustainability, respecting the local values of the Cebuanos. And in the end, we are very proud to work in the Philippines and to have such client as Artelan to help us to create this iconic building. Well, my presentation finished here. I must say again, thank you very much for the invitation and for the availability to invite Esplase, and on behalf of Miguel Saraiva, our CEO, would say thank you very much and look forward to visit again Philippines after the COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For our Q&A, we will have 2 parts. The first part, please, let's direct our questions to our Filipino speaker, Lawrence de los Santos. What time is it there? Where are you right now? I'm so sorry. I got lost in the time zones. Where are you right now?
I'm actually in Los Angeles, in California, and it's 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh, it's 4 a.m. So I'm so sorry about that. So we're going to ask you the questions first. So one of the questions we received on social media is, do you have a factory in the Philippines? And my own follow-up question, is there a factory tour like for of course now it's a pandemic, but you know how usually in schools they give you field trips. This kind of thing you're doing is something worth telling kids we can do, right? So that's the first question.
Yes, we have two separate locations in the Philippines. Both are in Cavite, inside the zones. Like I mentioned a while ago, we still have over 4,000 employees in the Philippines. And this is what's important, how to keep the 4,000 jobs in the Philippines. That's why we went to Portugal. Now, for the second question, yes, definitely doors are open. You just need to email me and then we'll organize a shopping trip. That's always possible.
Okay, the next question is phrased in Filipino street language. How to be you po? I don't know if you understand how to be you. How can people be like you? Can we have more of you? Can we have more businessmen like you in the Philippines? How can there be
I
more?
don't know how I wish I can answer that. I guess the key question is we just need to think out of the box. I mean, again, the sustainability for our company to think for the next 10, 20 years. For us, one of the solution was to make investments, again, 12,000 kilometers away to help the operations here. It's not to move the Philippines into Portugal, but to how to find a solution out there to help the Philippines. So again, that's just something that you need to think about. Yeah.
Now for the controversial question, because we are in an Asian Iberian conference. What did Portugal have that Spain did not? Because you could have put your factory in Spain. I'm so sorry, what a controversial question.
No, not controversial at all. I mean, like I mentioned, I love the Portuguese people. We had hired a GM for one of our operations who's Portuguese, and that was the connection during the Portuguese the financial crisis in Europe, 2010 to 2012. When my GM went back to Portugal, I said to her to find something. So I supported her, and then we eventually went and made the investment in Portugal. So it's not because Spain or Portugal, because we already had the Portuguese contact, and therefore it was just quite natural for us to just proceed in Portugal.
Okay, Ambassador Feria or Paulo Pinto, any parting shots so that we can let him sleep at 4 a.m. in the US?
Lawrence, thank you so much for doing this for us. We, like I said, I think I'm one of the ambassadors with a few bragging rights in Portugal. We're very proud of Philippine companies actually employing 300 or maybe even more Portuguese. It speaks well about both our countries. It's a perfect match. It's like what Sergio said, it's like a hand and a glove thing. We've been to NST in the north. We've gone shopping there, Nikki. It's something to be very, very proud of. And I always mention it everywhere I go, even if when I meet when I meet Portuguese government officials, and now it's online. So it's one of the bragging rights as the ambassador that a Filipino-owned company is actually employing Portuguese. And it speaks well of both the investment and the vision of the Filipino and the proper the matching of the business and the expertise of the Portuguese that you were able to use. And in the end, you produce high-end quality products of which the world, it just makes me just so proud. And we hope we see more Filipino investments in Portugal, because it's a perfect match, as what Lawrence has said. Then I'll go to the two later. But yes. Lawrence, good night. Good morning.
We shall
sorry to keep you up. We thought that you were. I'm sorry. I known that you were in LA. But yeah, well, they have Mabuti sardines in the Asian stores. So maybe in a few hours you break for breakfast and you'll have Mabuti sardines there.
Thank you very much. We'll let
Very
you
much,
speak
Mr.
about
Vines.
Don't mind if you, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
art. And now we go to the questions for our builders in the group. Two questions that both of you can answer. The first question is, despite the impact of the pandemic, do you think the Philippines remains as a good investment destination? Second question, in Manila, because of the cost of building information modeling program and advanced use and acceptance by other engineering trade is challenging, how are you coping with this in the local scene? Anybody can answer.
Enrique, you're muted.
Oh, you have to unmute. Yes.
Sorry, but you were saying regarding the opportunities on this market.
I was, yeah, during the time of COVID,
Yes.
does the Philippines remain a good investment destination?
Well, I think so, because we have this huge program from the Filipino government, the Build program, which has a huge potential for us as a rail market player. And we feel that. We are already engaged in some bidding for other rail projects like Malolos to Clark. And we still feel that this is a very good opportunity for us. We think we bring some know-how to the Philippines, because the rail market was almost stopped until this program was launched. So we could bring some know-how to these new projects, and we hope still continuing here, and hopefully to be successful on several other projects.
Do you want to respond as well, Sir Silva?
Yes, I do. For the Philippines market, our expectation is very high. Why? For two main reasons. One, the Filipino market looking for quality, and we provide quality service. That means always have a demand for this niche sector. And the second important thing is the Philippines looking also for the European standards. And that means for us, we are quite comfortable to invest and to explore Philippines in the Philippines, since these two values match very well with our company. And we think that even with the COVID, we think that is a market still hot, decrease a little bit, but still hot, like in all Southeast Asia. That means for us, still very high expectation.
And how about the question on the building information modeling program and how it's challenging in the Philippines and costly, or, you know, the program and advanced use and acceptance by the engineering trade is challenging. How are you coping with this in the local scene?
I think that is more for Sergio than me.
Yes. Well, as I have mentioned, BIM, the Building Information Modeling, or BIM, we can say BIM, is a very sophisticated software or system that incorporate different stakeholders of construction field. And one of the players is architects. For us, is the future. And we encourage the Filipino, in this case, clients and contractors to use it, because in China already is very well developed, in Hong Kong, Singapore, in Vietnam already start, and the Philippines also are in the same race. Europe is much less, and I think implementing this system can be competitive with another countries. And I'm a very supportive of, in terms of local, of course, always, this is the same situation maybe 20 years ago, when architects designed by hand, by pen. I studied in this way, and we design in the paper. And after came the computer, and with the new softwares, and these the step forward was always difficult to be adopted. But I would say for the local practice in the Philippines to be resilient and to bet in this solution.
There's a question from Paulo Pinto in our chat box to Enrique Santos. How do you think being Portuguese could have given you any sort of extra knowledge or advantage to other competitors in the Philippines, because railroads are not exactly a priority in Portugal?
Well, that was one of the main reasons for the internalization of Steconfer. It's the lack of projects in Portugal for railway works. So like many other companies in Portugal, we were forced to look for works in another countries. Here in Philippines, as I said on my presentation, we came to a project awarding from Hyundai Rotem from Korea. So, but once here, we noticed that there are a lack of know-how on the local companies. Many of them doesn't have the most basic, or I will not say basic, but railway heavy machines. There weren't anyone here in Philippines. So we saw that there is a lack of knowledge or standards here for railway track works. So we thought that is a good advantage for us. That's why we are competing for the other projects.
Okay, my last question has nothing to do much with building, but more to tie you to the first panel. Do you have any favorite Filipino products that you wish was available in Portugal?
Yes, dried mango.
You're always here also, sir, you're right?
Yes, every time that I go to Cebu, I eat lancheon.
Lechon.
Lechon. That we have a similar in Portugal, that is leitão. Maybe Ambassador Cookie knows very well. Yeah. And it is, I can kill my homesick from Portugal eating this very nice dish in Cebu.
The fruits too.
In Karkar, is it the lechon in Karkar? Okay.
The fruits too. There you have a lot of fruits that are not available in Portugal, like rambutan or dragon fruit. That kind of fruits could be imported to Portugal. Why not?
Yeah. We can end on
or
this.
Exported.
We could end on this delicious note. However, they marked here on my notes, very important to read this comment. It's from Chas Navarro. I believe he was supposed to write good time, but he wrote food time. I believe it is a good time now for the Portuguese government to reestablish a permanent embassy in the Philippines. Also, let us consider the importance of religious tourism made by Filipinos from here and from other countries. It's a good time. It's also food time. I don't know. I don't think our speakers are in the position to comment on that. But thank you very much. Unfortunately, it's 7:20, so I'll have to call on Paulo Pinto from SHAM Centro de Humanidades, Universidad Nova de Lisboa, for his closing remarks. And Paulo, you have the floor.
Hello. Thank you. Well, it's actually good time, also food time. So I will just say one or two remarks all about this. The first one is just to inform the people who are watching us now, how did we arrive here on this moment? I would like just to say that this was something that came up because of the 500 years of Magellan expedition and the celebrations that took place here in Europe, in Portugal, in Spain, and also in the Philippines. And on behalf of my center, of my research center in the Universidad Nova, it was quite an opportunity to take the moment in a challenge in previous contacts made with the embassy and the ambassador Sylvia Feria. We took the opportunity of develop several projects connected with the cultural heritage that connects Portugal and the Philippines in such historical way. Let me show you just like this, because we decided in CHAM to connect to gather the several projects we are involved now, and we decided to call it the Portugal Philippines Connected History and put it in a website. Just a few remarks. Well, this was a working group created here at CHAM under the sponsorship and support of the ambassador and the embassy. We have several projects going on regarding Portuguese documents, documentation about the presence in the Philippines, seminars and lectures. The first one was what actually gave the first step for us to move forward. This is quite, yeah, 2 years ago, and then some editions are now underway. Also, a very interesting exhibit promoted by the embassy in Lisbon, and so there are several projects that are going on, and that we decided to just seize the opportunity of this moment of celebration to put the cultural and historical heritage of the Portugal and the Philippines together. Now, this conference, Contacts and Continuity, is actually a milestone in this process that takes 2 or 3 years. And so it's quite, I would like very much to remark this, because it's something, I'm a historian, and I thought it's something quite unique in the conferences and seminars of history, art, and humanities to have a session dedicated not only to the past, but to the present. It would be so good that future events, future seminars on history, dealing mostly only with the past, something that has gone, and it would be such an interesting opportunity to just talk also about the present and connecting the past with the present, which is actually the motive of this seminar of contacts and continuities. And so from the first session about the historical tradition of the medieval times connecting Europe and Asia, now we are getting to the present and the future on the connections between, well, Iberian Peninsula, Portugal, and the Philippines. It could be, actually, I thought this should be the closing session of the seminar, of the conference, but of course, it could be different. And now this session, for me, it was quite interesting and strange at the same time, because I'm very used to history, talking about the past and documents and cultural historical heritage and so on. And so seeing people talking about products in Portuguese, like the Mabuti sardines and also Filipino ones here in Portugal, Portuguese investment and Filipino investment and vice versa. And that special event like the Web Summit being a very important hub that could give a thrust and moving forward into all of this project. I think this is quite wonderful. And I only regret that my efforts to promote and advertise this session among Portuguese media was not quite successful as I thought it would be. But so I would like, on behalf of my center, to thank you all. And I hope this could be some sort of a sowing the seeds of a future events and cooperative events and collaboration. And of course, a good success to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo Pinto, for your closing remarks. On behalf of the organizers of this event, the Philippine Embassy in Portugal, the School of Humanities of Ateneo de Manila University, of course, CHAM Centro de Humanidades of Universidad Nova de Lisboa, and the National Quincentennial Committee of the Philippines, we wish all of those who viewed with us tonight a pleasant evening in the Philippines and a pleasant day in Portugal. Goodbye to our audience from live streaming. And for our audience in the Zoom room, please stay tuned for a final group photo, and goodbye everybody. This has been Nikki Carsicus, your moderator for today. Bye.